It was so late already, who would come looking for them at this hour? Huang Yueli and Su Qingyu exchanged glances as they cried out, "Come in." The room door was pushed open, and the person who walked in was actually Su Jiasheng. As the top 10 female student in martial arts stage, she was also a famous person in the academy, but Huang Yueli and Su Qingyu didn't have much dealings with her before. It was only during this early afternoon, when they were being allocated factotums, Su Jiasheng spoke a few words to them. Huang Yueli curiously asked, "Senior Sister Su, why have you come? Please do take a seat inside." Su Jiasheng bore a terrified expression and refused to sit, but took a huge stride towards her as she spoke anxiously. "Junior Sister Yi, you're still so carefree, so happy. Do you know that you've been schemed today?" Su Qingyu was shocked. "Really? Why do you say that? Someone is scheming against Junior Sister Yi?" But Huang Yueli didn't take it to heart as she smiled, saying, "It's very normal for someone to scheme against me. Senior Sister Su, don't be overly anxious. Come, sit down and talk slowly. I have just brewed a pot of tea." "Aya, you still have the mood to drink tea?" Su Jiaqing was so anxious that her heart was jumping out of her mouth. "The beautiful task you received today, to clean up young sect master's courtyard, are you especially happy about it? But why didn't you consider the fact that, after beating up Fatty Wang to that state, why would Administrator Chen help you, instead of scheming against you? I'm telling you, there's a huge plot behind all this." "Plot? What plot?" Huang Yueli blinked as she asked curiously. Actually, she had indeed been puzzled for an entire day, regarding what Administrator Chen was plotting behind her back. But she thought for an entire day and still couldn't figure out what they were plotting which could cause any threat to her. On hearing that, Su Jiaqing thought that she had finally realized the seriousness of the matter as she hurried on. "Today I came back slightly later and on my way back, I heard someone talking in a corner. I thought the voice sounded familiar, so I stopped to eavesdrop a little more. Then I discovered that the person talking was actually Fatty Wang and a friend of his. They were discussing how to deal with you." Huang Yueli's interest was perked as she smiled. "What did he say?" Su Jiaqing stared at her. "You, Ari, Jia Sister Yi, can you stop smiling? This isn't funny at all." Fatty Wang's friend asked him, "Administrator Chen actually could allocate factotums for young sect master's courtyard, such a great task, why didn't he give it to him, but to allocate it to you, his foe, instead?" Fatty Wang then started bursting out into laughter, saying, "You think it's a beautiful task? Actually, this is something which he and the administrator had planned. It was said that ever since young sect master went to Celestial Light Academy, his mood took a huge change and those staying by his side were simply like accompanying a tiger instead of a gentleman, faulted at every turn. Even his most pampered shadow guard Mo Yi had been locked up in the water jail. Many of young sect master courtyard servants had offended him while he was fuming, and all been dealt with seriously. There were several of them who had made him so angry that they were executed on the spot." When Huang Yueli heard that, she couldn't help but wiped the sweat off her forehead. Surely it cannot be so right, angry to such a state. Things are indeed a little bad. Tomorrow when Li Moying saw her, would he be so agitated that his illness acted up? Su Jiasheng saw her pale look, and misunderstood, thinking that she was finally afraid as she continued. "Fatty Wang didn't seem like he knew what happened to young sect master, but as Celestial Light Academy students, it's not hard to guess, it must be because of Bai Ruoli's disappearance." You can also listen on. When Huang Yueli heard that this topic reverted back to her, she could only cough dryly. "Right, I also feel the same way. Ari, young sect master is really sentimental. What dogsha asterisk T-luck did Bai Ruoli ran into, to be able to make young sect master linger over her for so long? Furthermore, although this doesn't sound nice, but I feel that, junior sister Bai probably is a goner." Huang Yueli didn't felt anything, but Su Qingyu was afraid that she was upset, so she jumped up. "What are you saying? Junior sister Li will be fine. Her innate talent's so high, her potential exceeds us by a lot, how could she possibly be in trouble?" Su Jiaqing added, "I know you and junior sister Bai's relationship is very food, but surely we cannot cheat ourselves, right? It was rumored that the person pursuing her is Vice Principal Ling. He is a 7th stage realm practitioner. Won't killing her just be as easy as lifting a finger? Moreover, young sect master sent so many people to search for her, and yet they haven't found her yet. If she was alive, She would definitely try to find a way to contact young sect master, right? Su Qingyu wanted to add something more but was held back by Huang Yueli from behind. Huang Yueli gave her a keep calm, don't get impatient expression, as she turned around smiling. What senior sister said makes sense. Su Jiasheng sighed again. Anyway, it's a pity for junior sister Bai, but after something happened to her, young sect master is definitely in a thunderous mood, so if you were to continue staying around young sect master doing stuff, it's simply too dangerous, not knowing when you'll become his punching bag. Furthermore, from Fatty Wang's meaning, they will intentionally go stir up trouble in front of young sect master. You don't know the inner zone's interpersonal relationship in Celestial Light sect, so sooner or later, you'd commit some offenses. Junior sister Yi, yesterday you stood up at the crucial moment and saved everyone. I'm very grateful to you, so this time I sincerely give you a piece of advice. The water on young sect master's side is too deep, you can't go in and it's best that you don't. Go change to another factotum, even though it's slightly tougher, but it's much better than throwing away your life. When Huang Yueli heard that, she didn't felt that there was anything to be worried about, but as her curiosity was piqued, her mood started to turn for the better. She knew that Su Jiasheng came out of kindness, so she didn't rebuke her and only replied, "Senior sister, thank you. I will consider this carefully." Su Jiasheng saw her calm and composed look, and knew that her words had not reached her heart. The opportunities around young sect master was indeed much more, and it was normal for Yi Xiao's refusal to leave, but it was a waste for such a talented young lady. There was nothing much she could say anything, so she only heaved a long sigh as she left. After Su Jiasheng left, Huang Yueli and Su Qingyu exchanged glances, as they both felt it was slightly funny. Su Qingyu said, "I totally couldn't tell that Su Jiasheng was actually a kind-hearted person. Usually in the academy, I felt that she was an aloof person." Huang Yueli laughed. "Aloof or not, that would depend on the environment and the other party. Now in Celestial Light sect, she belongs to the weaker group, whereas my potential is much stronger than hers, so she would naturally find a chance to deepen the relationship with me. Alright, we'd better get some rest, tomorrow. I have an important matter to deal with." The night went past just like that. When Huang Yueli woke up early in the morning, she wasn't able to go to Li Moying's courtyard immediately. Because Administrator Chen had sent a message early in the morning, saying that it was an important day when young sect master returned to the sect. All the newly ascended outer disciples had to line up at the front of Celestial Light sect's front mountain door to receive him. On hearing this, many of the outer disciples were excited. You can also listen on. Young sect master Li Moying was South Sky region's #1 genius. His name was renown and absolutely not merely a false reputation. He was the person whom all the disciples in Celestial Light sect admired. Especially for those Celestial Light Academy students, they had unknowingly spent several months together with Li Moying in the academy, and personally witnessed his extraordinary powerful ability, so their admiration towards him was much more than other. From early morning, a large group of outer disciples had on Administrator Cheng's request, dressed in the Celestial Light uniform robe, lines up neatly into different groups, as they waited at the mountain door entrance. Huang Yueli was mixed among these people, and thought it was just a short wait, but in the end, they waited and waited, all the way till mid-afternoon, but had not seen any traces of Li Moying. Her legs were aching from the standing and she gloomily ridiculed, "Li Moying really puts on some airs. When is he going to arrive? He actually made everyone wait for such a long." "Shut up." Huang Yueli suppressed her voice as she spoke to Su Qingyu, but unknowing when, the outer disciples behind her heard what she said. "You're merely a newly joined outer disciple. How dare you be so disrespectful towards young sect master? Do you know how talented young sect master is, and how powerful he is? An exceptional genius like him should be sought after by everyone. He's a role model whom we should learn from. I'm willing to stand here to wait for his arrival, to be able to welcome young sect master. It's our glory. If you don't want to come, you can go back. There are plenty of other people who wishes to come." This disciple spoke with justice, as it gave Huang Yueli a shock. She instantly shut her mouth, not daring to say anything more, in case anyone else heard it and gave her another lecture. She had not expected Li Moying to be so popular and adored in Celestial Light sect, These outer disciples were simply blindly admiring her. Li Moying indeed was a genius, very powerful, but not as exaggerated as what that person had said. Su Qingyu saw her beaten look, as she couldn't take it, and laughed secretly. Huang Yueli felt like she was going to vomit out blood. What was this? She couldn't even ridicule her own man. It was close to 11:15 when Li Moying finally came running late. His flying ship descended in front of Celestial Light Sect's mountain entrance, causing everyone to compete for his attention. Young sect masters finally arrived. Hurry, 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 move aside, I gotta take a close look. It's rumored that young sect master is exceptionally good looking, none was comparable, South Sky Region's #1 handsome male. I've got to take a clear look. So many young ladies were squeezing forward agitatedly, worried that they weren't able to see clearly. As the flying ship descended, Huang Yueli's heart started thumping hard. Even though she had met Li Moying countless times, but this was the first time in her 2 lifetimes to admit that she liked him, so this was also her first time welcoming the person she liked. This kind of feeling. Wow, Sister Li, your face is ref. Su Qingyu laughed. Huang Yueli's embarrassment turned into anger. Shut up. Li Moying's figure appeared on the empty land in front of the mountain entrance. He was still dressed in a dark robe with gold trimming, which accented his jade-like complexion, his handsome features and perfectly sculpted contours, without any flaw, an exquisite piece of work with great care. He slowly walked towards the mountain entrance. That cold, proud, almighty presence was unleashed as he moved. Even though he was gifted with such suave looks, from certain angles, he looked much prettier than a young lady, but everyone could distinctly felt the superiority presence which was emitting from his bone. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's eyes opened wide, as it was fixated onto him without blinking, feeling that she was forgetting about how to breathe. She discovered that Li Moying seemed to become better looking. Furthermore, he seemed to become more and more alike Mu Chengying. This kind of similarly was not only in terms of looks, but in terms of the presence, possibly due to his increasing age, which made his elegant contours gradually turn rigid, adding a matured man's look. At this moment, the front mountain was totally silent, and it was until Li Moying was about to pass by when Administrator Chen reminded from the back, "Hey, what are you in a daze for? Didn't I ask you to welcome young sect master back to the sect?" All of them were rudely poked awake from their beautiful dream as they urgently cried out loudly, "Welcome young sect master." But Li Moying was still expressionless, as though he hadn't heard anything at all, as he continued trudging forward. Huang Yueli almost cried out to him, but at the last moment, she recalled that she was in front of Celestial Light Sect's entrance, and there were too many people here, so it wasn't suitable as a place for talking. After Li Moying walked further away, the young ladies in line started to get excited. Wow! Young sect master is really good looking. The moment when he walked over, I felt that I was about to suffocate. His name indeed isn't in vain. Young sect master's presence is really strong. He's only 20 years old and already at 7th stage realm. This kind of potential simply surpassed everyone's imagination. That's right, he's so handsome and so powerful. Whoever marries young sect master is really too fortunate. Even if you ask me to become young sect master's concubine, I'm willing. Che, just based on you. Who is young sect master? He has plenty of maids who can warm up his bed, and there are plenty of large sect's young misses who would automatically offer themselves. Wish for your turn. Furthermore, young sect master seems to be getting engaged with sect master's eldest young Miss Murong Fei. What? How could that be possible? Hearing this gossip, several of them started shrieking loudly, and they were all Celestial Light Academy students. They had personally witnessed Li Moying and Huang Yueli's unrestrained endearing love for each other in every single corner of the academy. Later on, Huang Yueli's disappearance made Li Moying super anxious, which was what many had seen as well. But now, the people from Celestial Light Sect actually said that Li Moying was going to get engaged to Murong Fei. But, when he was in the academy, young sect master obviously said that junior sister Bai was his fiancée. The person who started talking about the gossip was a young lady with a goose egg-shaped face, and she was already in her 3rd year as an outer disciple. Earlier she had merely said this casually, but she had not expected so many people to stare at her, making her feel tensed immediately. What? Have I said anything wrong? This rumor. The entire sect knows about it. Young sect master and eldest young miss were childhood friends, and sect master had always wished for both of them to get married, whereas eldest young miss had always admired young sect master, but he had always had his mind on cultivation, with no feelings put on onto. When Huang Yueli heard that, she wasn't angry, but the corners of her mouth started to twitch. Li Moying always had his mind on cultivation, with no feelings on ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Moying's beastly traits acted up, he really didn't seem like a human. That goose egg-shaped young lady continued, but, this time young sect master went out on a training experience, and actually brought eldest young miss along. Both of them even sat on the same flying ship back. Looks like their relationship had taken a huge step forward. So, everyone said, this round. Their wedding bells should be nearing. You can also listen on. When Huang Yueli heard that, her expression turned slightly ugly. Great, it seemed that when she wasn't around, Li Moying actually flirted around. Su Qingyu was secretly looking at her expression as she whispered, why would young sect master bring Murong Fei along to train? I think these are all rumors only, so don't be angry. Huang Yueli replied, I'm not angry. Of course I know it's fake. Although she said that, but she still felt a sour feeling, so no matter what she still felt upset over it. Su Qingyu was scared witless, not knowing what to say, so she hid by one corner not daring to open her mouth. Unfortunately at this moment, Murong Fei appeared at the front mountain entrance. She was dressed in a flowy yellow satin long dress, laced with chiffon, with delicate makeup as she put in extra effort in dressing up, taking elegant steps, heading towards Li Moying. Eldest senior brother, you're finally back. Murong Fei's voice was soft and sticky, gentle and soft, making one's bones turn flaky from hearing it. Whoa, eldest young miss is just so pretty and her voice is so melodious. It's no wonder young sect master is tempted by her. Sigh, indeed, when people compete with each other, it will only infuriate one to death. Eldest Miss Murong's background and innate talent are extremely outstanding, so she's that compatible with young sect master. As for us, we'd better stop daydreaming. Huang Yueli was so angry that she clenched her teeth, as her eyes stared intently on Li Moying and Murong Fei's actions. Murong Fei walked in front, and leaned against Li Moying's direction, attempting to stretch out her hand to hold on to his arm. But, Li Moying seemed as though she didn't see him, as he moved aside directly, making Murong Fei pounced onto empty space, and losing her balance, she almost fell flat on her face. Seeing that, Huang Yueli then humph, at least you know your limits, didn't try to get fresh with another woman behind my back. Murong Fei had once again been rejected by Li Moying and she was feeling extremely vexed, but didn't dare to fly into a rage with him. She bit on her lips, using a tenderly soft gaze, looking upwards at Li Moying, attempting to use her eyes to touch him. But Li Moying didn't even bother to look sideways. In actual fact, not only did he not felt any tenderness or feel touched, instead he felt extremely irritated. If it wasn't for the fact that Murong Fei was sect master's daughter, he would have sent her flying with a slap long ago. All he had on his mind was his missing Leah, and originally he was already very frustrated. In the end a housefly kept buzzing around him, so how would it not make him even angrier? Just as Li Moying was about to act up, Murong Fei seemed to have noticed something as she didn't dare to be rash as she obediently stood there, opening her mouth. Eldest senior brother, I'm here on behalf of my father to invite you. My father says, he has an important matter to discuss with you, so when you return to the sect, to invite you over to his residence. Li Moying nodded his head, all right. He thought for a moment and said, forget it, I will go with you to master's place right now. Murong Fei was overjoyed as she replied, great, eldest senior brother, then please come along with me. Normally even if it was her father who invited Li Moying, he would require repeated urging before he went. Today he actually went over immediately. Could it be that it was really because of her personal invite? Eldest senior brother really had given up on that dead wretched lass, and prepared to consider being together with her. Murong Fei didn't knew that Li Moying totally didn't notice her, but merely thought that tonight was a full moon's night, so his illness would probably act up any time now. After he recovered, he would still need to continue searching for Leah, so he couldn't afford to waste any time. You can also listen on. So, it'd be best to take this opportunity to quickly deal with Murongda. By the time Li Moying and Murong Fei had exchanged their last words, they had already walked quite far away, so those spectators at the entrance weren't able to hear it clearly. Everyone only saw Murong Fei and Li Moying exchanging several words, and subsequently Li Moying left along with her. Looks like the rumors are true. Eldest young miss personally came over to receive young sect master, and young sect master left along with her immediately. Are they going on a date? Very likely. After all, we heard that young sect master had gone out for an entire month to experience training. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart fonder. I really envy eldest young miss. This is called the perfect match, an ideal combination. No, impossible. Young sect master already has a fiancé. Furthermore, she's not the eldest young Miss Murong who you all are talking about. Just as everyone were discussing in envy, suddenly, a discord voice butted in. Huang Yueli turned her head to take a look and discovered the person talking was Yuan Ziyu. The expression on his face was slightly stiff and his tone wasn't good. When young sect master was in our Celestial Light Academy, he was already together with a junior sister. And because that junior sister went missing, he was searching everywhere anxiously for her. This just happened 2 months ago, so there's no way young sect master would have a change of heart so soon. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and by the time his words were absorbed into his brain, they couldn't help but started to laugh out. This junior brother here, what you say is really interesting. Young sect master likes a junior sister from your academy. How is that possible? That's right, the number of women who likes young sect master are just too much. Those who could get close to him are usually some daughter of some large sect. There are plenty of ladies with excellent innate talent and peerless beauty, so why would he be interested in any ordinary young lady? It must be that lady who is bragging outside on her own, spoiling young sect master's reputation. That's right. The number of women who wants to stick to young sect master are plentiful. She won't be able to get her way. Yuan Ziyu's righteous words were in exchange for the crowd's ridicule. He was so infuriated that his face flushed red, as he contended on strong grounds. He treated Li Moying as his idol, but in the end, his idol was slandered to the extent of being a face-changing scum, so how could he stand this? But unfortunately, no one believed in his words. Huang Yueli shook her head silently, as she was very clear on what the lady's way of thinking. Murong Fei was sect master's daughter, so her status was much higher than theirs. So, if she became Li Moying fiancé, then could at least comfort themselves that Li Moying had married Murong Fei because of her status. But if Li Moying were to marry an ordinary student whose status just worse off than theirs, then that was something which they absolutely could not accept. Huang Yueli was in a trance from listening when suddenly, she felt a pat on her shoulder from behind. Yi Xiao, why are you still here in a daze? A voice snapped right from her back, giving her a shock. Who's that? She hurriedly turned her head back. Administrator Chen was standing right behind her, as his expression was rather ugly, and upon seeing her turn back, he immediately showered his verbal abuse at her. I say, what time is it already? You're still here lazing around. Young sect master has already entered the sect, what are you still looking at here? Still not hurrying up to go young sect master's courtyard to clean up one more round? Tonight, young sect master will be staying in his courtyard, and if he discovered the room is messy and dirty, if he wants to blame us, who will be able to take up this responsibility? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli knew that Administrator Chen was intentionally picking up a fight as her face instantly sunk. But the minute she thought that she was about to meet Li Moying, she didn't have the time to bother about him, so she might as well just nod her head. Administrator Chen, it indeed is my negligence. I will go to young sect master's courtyard right now. I guarantee that I will tidy up nearly, making young sect master satisfied. Administrator Chen gave a cold harumph as he said, You're already so passive and slack, how can I believe that you will work properly? Follow me, I'll send you there personally and supervise you, so don't even think of skiving. Saying that, he seemed as though he was really afraid of Huang Yueli running away, as he followed closely with her. Huang Yueli was rather speechless. Even if Administrator Chen wanted to chase her away, she would beg to stay, all right? He was actually afraid that she might slip away. But, since Administrator Chen was really so enthusiastic, then it indeed proved that he was plotting something. Yesterday Su Jiasheng wasn't wrong in saying that. But although that was that, she still followed Administrator Chen, all the way till Li Moying's courtyard's entrance. Administrator Chen then stopped his footsteps as he said, "All right, not everyone can enter young sect master's courtyard, so I won't be going in. Remember properly what I said earlier, tidy up each and every room carefully, not forgetting any corner, do you understand?" "I understand." Huang Yueli nodded. Administrator Chen then gave a slight smile. "All right, hurry up and go in, don't delay young sect master's rest time. Remember to do your work properly, I will be watching you." All Huang Yueli had on her mind was to meet Li Moying, so she couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Administrator Chen, so she casually nodded and turned to head into the door. Administrator Chen saw that she really lifted a cleaning cloth and pail in, as he couldn't help but started laughing out loud. Fatty Wang, whose face was covered in scars, suddenly popped out from the side of the bushes. "Uncle, we've succeeded, right? Has that wretched lass really gone in? She will go and tidy up that secret room, right?" Administrator Chen fiddled with his beard as he gave a slight smile. "I've specially instructed her to clean every single room, so she will definitely do as told. Earlier I saw that look in her eyes, when she was there welcoming young sect master. It's exactly the same as those love-struck lasses, hoping to swallow him in one mouth. She was especially worried that young sect master would be dissatisfied, so she will try her hardest to make sure she does her work properly. So, she will definitely tidy up that room." Fatty Wang replied in a sour tone, "Why are women all so superficial, only know how to like those handsome ones, and those with strong abilities? No matter how incredible young sect master is, he would not take interest in them young lasses. Why is it that every single one of them, after they met HM, seemed as though they had taken a love potion?" Administrator Chen said, "What does that have to do with you? Anyway, the greatest achievement is to exact your revenge this time." Fatty Wang immediately casted aside all other thoughts as he asked worryingly, "But, will young sect master really kill her? If young sect master finds out that we're the masterminds behind, then," Administrator Chen said, "this you don't have to worry. Didn't you see that Protector Mo Yi have already been sent to the water prison? Would this lass's treatment be better than Mo Yi? Just be totally assured. We only need to come and watch the show early tomorrow morning. Perhaps, tomorrow morning, her corpse would be thrown out by young sect master's shadow guard. No matter what, she would be beaten up badly, and her meridians and profound energy would be crippled." The minute Fatty Wang thought of this, he started to get excited. "That's great, I'm going to bury her as a funerary object for my silver wolf. You can also listen on." The minute Huang Yueli entered Li Moying's courtyard, she bumped into Mo Chi head-on. As Li Moying's shadow guard and housekeeper, after Mo Chi returned to the sect with Li Moying, the first thing he did was to return to the courtyard to arrange the household matters. The minute he entered the door, Mo Chi felt something was amiss, as though someone had entered this courtyard. Moreover, the person in charge of cleaning was not very responsible. He had obviously repeatedly requested before he left that the items in the house should not be moved, but the person who cleaned up had casually misplaced the items everywhere. Who on earth was the unreliable person who had done such a thing? If young sect master were to see this, that person would be in deep *T. Mo Chi was just feeling angry over this, as he couldn't wait to grab that irresponsible factotum for a beating. In the end, when he turned around, he saw a 16 to 17-year-old young lady standing behind his back. "You're the factotum who's responsible for tidying the courtyard? How do you even work? Are the things in this house something which you can casually touch? I'm telling you, if you're not putting your heart into doing this, if you infuriate young sect master, that would be a consequence which you cannot afford." Mo Chi was infuriated, so when he saw her, he didn't even wait for her explanation when he started berating. He thought that his stern and severe look would made that ordinary-looking outer female disciple scared out of her wits. In the end, when that young lady saw him, she only gave him a lazy smile as she waved to him. "Mo Chi, We haven't met for quite some time. Mochi was stunned for a moment, as he immediately frowned. You know me? As Li Moying's shadow guard, his status in Celestial Light Sect was not low, and when outer disciples saw him, they revered him extremely, so no one dared to speak to him like this. Furthermore, this young lass's tone, and the manner of her actions looked extremely familiar. But Mochi thought for quite some time, and still couldn't recall where he had seen her before. Seeing Mo Yi with a puzzled look, Huang Yueli blinked her eyes as she suddenly cried out in astonishment, "Ah, right, I forgot to wash away my disguise, no wonder you couldn't recognize me. Hurry, does Li Moying have any medicine to cleanse of disguises? Quickly bring it out for me, I don't want to use this ugly look to meet him." Mochi was even more puzzled by her words. Just as he was in a daze, Huang Yueli suddenly recalled it herself. "Right, yesterday when I came to tidy up, I saw some in that medical room, I'll go get it myself." Saying that, she jumped up and ran over to the room by the side. Mochi then regained his senses. As his expression changed, he hurriedly chased up to her. "What are you doing? How dare you barge around by yourself? Do you know what place this is? So gutsy, if you were to accidentally trigger any mechanism, you will lose your life." Mochi ran over to the medical room entrance, and saw Huang Yueli putting her hand into the medicinal cabinet, as she grabbed a bottle of medicine. At the same time, she turned her head back and looked at him with an innocent look. "What did you say earlier? I didn't hear you clearly." Mochi pointed his finger at her, as it trembled non-stop. You, what situation was this?" This young girl had actually stretched her hand into young sect master's medicinal cabinet and took out the medicine. He had simply seen a ghost alive. As the housekeeper, no one was clearer than Mochi on how many mechanisms had been set up in this small medical room. Li Moying's collections in the medical room were all priceless, so in comparison, he had also set up a lot of defense mechanisms. You can also listen on. If a thief were to enter the medical room to steal anything, then he probably hadn't even stepped into the room door before he was turned into a beehive by the flying darts mechanism. And in the front of the medicinal cabinet, there were large amounts of array set up, which could confuse one's sight. Unless Li Moying personally led the person, otherwise, most people were not able to find the medicinal cabinet. But now, this exquisitely set up mechanisms seemed as though a child playing house, spoilt by someone's casual wave of hand. While Mochi was left dumbstruck, Huang Yueli took out another bottle of medicine from the other side. "This is the medicine which Liu Buyan prescribed for Li Moying, right? It smells exactly the same as what I had smelled previously. Speaking of that, today is full moon's night. Has Li Moying taken his medicine? When will he be back?" Hearing this, Mochi seemed as though a lightning had struck his brain silly, as he finally regained some consciousness. Combining all the things which the young lady said earlier and adding on to her casual way of breaking a high-leveled array and the sight and ability to see a mechanism, his brain revealed a name of someone who had been missing for some time. "Bai. Third Miss. You're Third Miss Bai." Huang Yueli then raised her head up and smiled at him as she said, "Isn't that me? Although I know, we haven't met for such a long time, and everyone definitely misses me, but surely you don't need to show me this expression as though you've seen a ghost, right? Isn't this considered as seeing a living ghost?" Mochi felt as though he was about to faint from fright, as he took several deep breaths, and speaking in a quivering voice, Third Miss, why are you here?" Huang Yueli replied, "I heard that you all had been searching for me, and I'm worried if I go and look for you guys by myself, I might miss you all again, so I just came directly to Celestial Light Sect and wait." Mochi still hadn't gained back his senses. But aren't you being pursued by Ling Wenbin, and after that you disappeared? Where have you gone to? Why were we not able to find you at all? And, where is Ling Wenbin right now?" Huang Yueli smiled as she responded, "You just pile one lump of questions, so how do you want me to reply? This is a long story. When I have time in future, I'll explain then. Now, can I trouble you to look for Li Moying urgently, and tell him that I'm here, asking him to come look for me?" Hearing this, Mochi seemed as though he was awoken from his dream as he immediately jumped right up. Right, this matter must be reported to Master immediately. During this period, Master thought you had died in Ling Wenbin's hands, and was simply heartbroken. If he knew that you're all right, he will go mad from joy. I'll go inform Master right now. Third miss, please wait here for a moment. Don't move anywhere. Huang Yueli smiled. Go ahead, where could I run off to? Mochi nodded, not daring to waste any time, as he slipped out from the house in a puff. Huang Yueli stayed in the house alone, thinking that she was about to meet Li Moying soon, as her spirits lifted greatly. She found some water first, and mixing it with the medicine, she washed off the disguise on her face, revealing a delicate, dainty face. Due to the successful advancement, the seal on her flame spirit physique had unveiled another layer, as her looks also became even more alluring. As though a rose which shed its shyness, slowly blossoming, revealing a peerless glamour which made one enraptured. Right now, her looks were already on a top-rated beauty level. You can also listen on. Although Murong Fei was publicly known as the #1 beauty in the entire South Sky region, but if she were really to stand next to Huang Yueli, she was just not enough to be compared with her. Huang Yueli retrieved a bronze mirror as she looked in the reflection, and felt slightly dissatisfied. Previous life. She was much prettier, helming an incomparable astonishing beauty. It was rumored that Mu Chengying had just taken one look at her from afar, and it was love at first sight. Now she wasn't as beautiful as before. If he were to regain his memories, would he be dissatisfied? But, even it was too late even if he was dissatisfied. She had already relied on him, so don't he even dare to think of ditching her. The man whom she, Huang Yueli, chose, how was it even possible for him to escape from her clutches? Although she had this thinking, Huang Yueli rearranged a new hairstyle and smeared a little lipstick on her lips, before she nodded her head in satisfaction. But after she had prepared everything, Li Moying still hadn't returned. Huang Yueli guessed that it must be an extremely important matter which Murongde was discussing with him, which was why Mochi couldn't be found either. But she wasn't anxious, so she continued to tour around the house. She had been to the initial few rooms yesterday, and there were still a number of rooms at the end of the corridor which she hadn't been to. Huang Yueli continued to look around, and while looking, she exclaimed in admiration, "Wow, Li Moying is really rich. He has so many of these 9th-tier materials here. Who on earth set up these mechanisms for him? Just short of me by a little. Ian, very good, he's so rich, looks like he will be able to provide for me." Huang Yueli mumbled to herself in satisfaction, as she reached the last room's entrance at the end of the corridor. She casually pushed open the door and unexpectedly realized that the door didn't open up. Huang Yueli lowered her head, and discovered that the door had been set up with an array, which will obstruct those without any identification to enter the room. Huang Yueli placed her hand on the door and injected some profound energy, and this time the room door immediately opened up. Weird, why would he set up a lock in his own house? Just how much treasures are stored in this room? I gotta look carefully, not allowing him to have his own private stash in future. As Huang Yueli taunted, she walked in, and as she stood in the middle of the room, she turned around to look at the surroundings and immediately she went into a daze. Celestial Light Sect's main hall. Mochi was negotiating with the guards at the entrance. "Senior brothers, I'm so sorry but I have something extremely important to inform young sect master, so will you please help me to inform him?" But the guards took no action. Protector Mo, sect master and young sect master are discussing very important things. If you have anything urgent, can't you just wait a while? But my matter here is extremely urgent. I must inform young sect master immediately. Mochi anxiously replied. The guards blocked his entrance, refusing him entry. Protector Mo, we are considered as friends, so I'll tell you the truth. West Sky Region's Green Cloud sect has sent someone over again. Last time they suggested a tournament with our sect. In the end they were beaten hands down by young sect master. So this time, not knowing what trickery they are up to, they actually sent someone over again. I heard that something big is going to happen. Ah, there's such a matter. Mochi replied in surprise. Isn't that so? So no matter how important your matter is, can it be more important that the sect's benefits? Just wait a while more. The guards patted Mochi's shoulder, as they closed the main door's entrance in his face. Mochi really wanted to cry but no tears came out. He dared to bet that in Li Moying's heart, Third Miss's matter was the most important matter which overtook his own life. You can also listen on. What West Sky Region's Green Cloud sect, the sect's life and death, as compared to Third Miss, was all a fart. However, others wouldn't think in the same way as him. So, Mo Chi was sorrowfully rejected outside the door, and no matter what he said didn't went through. But luckily, he was here to deliver good news, so even if Li Moying wasn't pre-informed about the news where Huang Yueli had returned, it was just a matter of being happy a little later, and it would not lead to any serious consequences. So Mo Chi didn't take any drastic action, only walking around anxiously at the entrance of the main hall. For Murongde to look for Li Moying, it was definitely for a huge matter. Because beside the two of them, there were several elders in the sect, who were in the main hall, discussing for an entire day and still not coming out yet. It was only in the evening around 7 p.m. when the main hall's door suddenly opened. Li Moying's tall statue appeared from the entrance. Mo Chi shot up like an arrow and was just about to open his mouth when he suddenly noticed that standing right beside Li Moying was Murong Fei. The words which were by Mo Chi's mouth were swallowed back instantly. Everyone knew that Murong Fei couldn't stand all those ladies who appeared beside Li Moying, especially jealous of Third Miss. The last time she was in Celestial Light Academy, she even went to look for Third Miss's trouble. And now, she was just standing there, so if he were to speak about Third Miss's whereabouts, would it cause trouble for Third Miss? Just this but of hesitation from Mo Chi, Li Moying had already departed forward continuously. Tonight was full moon's night, and now that the day was starting to turn dark, there was a possibility that his soul detachment illness would act up any time, so he didn't dare to delay any time, and must rush back to his own courtyard quickly. Li Moying's speed was extremely swift, even Mo Chi couldn't catch up to him. But, taking a turn of thoughts, wouldn't Li Moying see Huang Yueli when he returned? There was no difference whether he reported or not, so he might as well stop pursing him. But even though Mo Chi didn't pursue, Murong Fei on the other hand followed him closely, blindly following suit by Li Moying's side. Eldest senior brother, what do you think of it? Earlier, my father's suggestion. You don't seem to agree to it totally. Li Moying replied coldly, I respect Master's decision, as long as he feels it can be done, I have no objection. Really? But, eldest senior brother, wait for me, you're walking so fast, I can't catch up at all. Li Moying's footsteps were so brisk that even though he didn't need to use any body movements or profound skills, Murong Fei was already having a hard time catching up. Just a little while later, she was already panting hard, and so tired that her feet turned to jelly, as she shouted out from behind, hoping Li Moying would stop in his tracks. But Li Moying totally ignored her, as he flashed and dashed into his own courtyard. When Mo who had been following Li Moying, saw Murong Fei's withered look, a gloating smile appeared on his face, as he specially stopped and laughed, Eldest young miss, thanks for your trouble, following my master even though he's gone back to rest. But unfortunately, today is full moon's night. Murong Fei was filled with thoughts of following the man, and totally forgot what day was today. It was only after Mo-er's reminder when she suddenly recalled, and her expression instantly changed. Ah. So, tonight is full moon. Yes, it's my negligence. Murong Fei immediately wiped off the sweat on her forehead, then. I won't disturb eldest senior brother from his rest today, I'll go back now. Saying that, Murong Fei immediately turned around and ran. What joke was that, when eldest senior brother's soul detachment illness acted up, that was extremely terrifying. You can also listen on. Furthermore, by that time, he won't recognize anyone and would kill anyone he met. Murong Fei was still young, so why would she not care about her own life? The senior eldest brother at this timing, it was best to avoid him far, far away. Anyway, they have a long way ahead of them, so when he had returned back to normal, she would then continue to seduce him. Looking at Murong Fei's back as she left in a hurry, Moa gave a cold harumph of disdain, only know how to run away at this juncture. No wonder Master only likes Third Miss, and not like you. Although they were only shadow guards, but Li Moying was surrounded by intelligent people, so it wasn't any wonder that they could differentiate the person's character rather well. Li Moying was usually extraordinarily handsome, overbearing and strong, so naturally he was every female's favored match, But whenever his soul detachment illness acted up, at his deepest pained situation, when he turned into a devil from hell, no one was able to get close to him. So how many could treat him in the same way as before? Probably, there was only Third Miss who could do that. On full moon's night, Lee Moying could not do without anyone taking care of him. Moa just raised his foot as he was preparing to step in when he saw Mochi panting heavily right behind him. Wait. Second brother, don't go in. Moa was stunned. What happened? Mochi hooked his arm around his neck as he couldn't help but laugh out. Tell you a piece of good news. Third Miss is back and she's alright. Moreover, she's in Master's room right now. What? How is that possible? Moa was extremely shocked. It's real, even more real than a real pearl. So, let's stay away further tonight. Anyway, even if Master's soul detachment illness really acted up, Third Miss will be able to settle it, so let's not go disturb them exchanging their lovey-dovey words. Moa finally got out of his shock as he slowly revealed a smile. You're absolutely right. He doesn't need us here now. Come, let's go grab a drink. As long as Third Miss was back, to everyone, life had instantly been lit up in colors once again. At this moment, Huang Yueli was just walking to the last storage room at the very end of the corridor, as she admired Lee Moying's collections. The room which she was in right now was the secret room which Administrator Chen was talking about, but she herself didn't knew that this room was out of bounds. Furthermore, she didn't feel that there was any problem at all. Because this place had stored all the things which were related to her, including the various profound armaments which she had gifted Lee Moying during their outdoor training, and various medicinal pills. Even the cloth which she used to help bandage his wound when they fell off the cliff, and the wooden tub which she gave to him with the Spirit Saint spring water, were all kept here, and arranged neatly in the room. An anti-dust array was even set up, storing it carefully as though it were some precious gems. The only thing which was missing was the profound lunar spirit mirror which she had refined personally, but Huang Yueli didn't need to think before she knew that this item must have been kept by his side. Seeing Lee Moying valued the things which she had gave him, Huang Yueli's heart was touched, as her eyes started to sting slightly. What is this? This stinky man is really a Scrooge, a cheapskate. I took so much time to refine the profound armaments for him, and he actually can't bear to use it. I gave it to him for defense, and isn't it a complete waste to not use it? Really, Huang Yueli quietly mumbled to herself, and although her mouth was filled with complaints, but she was feeling incredibly sweet on the inside. Just at this moment, she suddenly felt an immense danger approaching. You can also listen on. Immediately following that, the half-opened door behind her was pushed open with violent force, and an overbearing and pure thunder-attributed profound energy came charging mercilessly towards her back. Huang Yueli hastily moved aside, but the attack speed of the person behind her was simply too fast, as he used lightning's power, giving out an air-breaking sound. Just hearing the sound alone made Huang Yueli's scalp turned numb. She knew that she absolutely could not evade it, so she could only choose to scream out loudly, Lee Moying, it's me. What? When Lee Moying was heading back from the outside, he already felt his head getting heavier and heavier, as there was a faint pain, which were the signs of soul detachment illness acting up. He tried his best to suppress this feeling, hoping that he would not lose his self-control so quickly. But the more he tried to control it, the more uncomfortable he felt. Just as his body was turning hotter and hotter, as the thunder-attributed energy was about to explode out, he suddenly heard a noise coming from his house. Furthermore, it was coming from his most valued secret room. The items in that room weren't extremely valuable, but it was all given by Huang Yueli to him personally, and those were all his warmest memories. In future, if he and Leah were really to separate, then he would use those objects to curb his missing her. But someone actually entered that important room. Lee Moying hadn't got the time to think carefully yet on why that heavily secured room, which was set up with various arrays, was opened up by someone. Right now his judgment had been invaded with the raging profound energy, and there was only one thought left, which was to immediately strike that daring thief to death on the spot. How dare he touch the things which Leah gave to him? It simply was. Dying 10,000 times wasn't enough. Lee Moying instinctively struck his first move, and on seeing that thief about to be struck down, he suddenly discovered that this thief's figure seemed a little familiar. Following that he heard a melodious and ultra-familiar voice, as it rang from not too far away. "Li Moying, it's me. What were you trying to do to me?" That voice was like a bolt of lightning in broad daylight, as Li Moying quivered and instantly awoke. This was Li's voice. His body had already made a reaction over his brain, as he charged towards Huang Yueli immediately. Thunder-attributed profound energy had already left his body, and it could not be retrieved, but Li Moying's own speed was much faster than the lightning. He managed to reach Huang Yueli's side on time as he tightly hugged her slender waist, embracing her as they rolled on the ground. The lightning struck heavily on Huang Yueli's original position, and there was just half a meter of distance between that area and where they were lying on. As for the mahogany table which was struck, it had already turned into a charred piece of wood, as it kept fuming choking smoke repeatedly. When Huang Yueli turned back to take a look, and she immediately broke out in sweat. Heavens, she knew Li Moying was very powerful, but this was just too strong, and his speed was just too fast. In the past, she had never experienced it personally and had just seen Li Moying beating other people up, so she didn't know any better. Now that she herself became Li Moying's attack target, she then realized the extent of how powerful Li Moying was. Being the same 7th stage realm practitioner, in Ling Wenbin's hands, not only was she able to escape, moreover under special circumstances, she was able to counterstrike beautifully. You can also listen on. But when facing Li Moying, she didn't even have a sliver of possibility to escape at all. At the instance when she was enveloped by Li Moying's overbearing thunder-attributed domain, she had been locked in as his target, invaded by that invasive presence as her mind went blank and her body totally immovable, only able to stand still and wait for death to descend. This simply was too terrifying. Even though she had escaped death, but just recalling it made Huang Yueli's heart palpitate wildly as sweat kept sprouting. It wasn't only her who was anxious, Li Moying was in fact even more anxious than her. The arm which he hugged Huang Yueli's slender waist kept trembling non-stop. It took quite a while later before he regained his composure, as he stretched out his hand and gently caressed her hair, as though he was afraid that she would disappear. Such carefulness made Huang Yueli's heart quiver. She hurriedly raised her head up, meeting Li Moying's gaze. She thought she would be able to smile and greet him, but the minute she raised his head, he saw Li Moying's deep and painful black eyes. She couldn't bring a smile to her face at all. After some time, a sentence was forced out of her throat. "Li Moying, I'm fine, I've returned." Li Moying said one word, and immediately stopped. Huang Yueli heard his gagged tone and instantly widened her eyes because she could tell that Li Moying seemed as though he was about to cry. She hurriedly hugged Li Moying, pouncing herself onto him, as she showed her pure and beautifully face which she had intentionally put on makeup in front of him. "Hey, what do you mean by this? Aren't you happy to see me at all? Give me a smile." "Of course I'm happy. Leah, you're all right. You're really all right? Am I not dreaming about this?" Li Moying locked her tightly as the force in his arm became stronger and strong, as though he was about to break her waist. Huang Yueli originally thought about enduring it, but Li Moying was so agitated that he totally forgot to control his force, and she couldn't take it any further as she gave out a moan. When Li Moying heard her moan, his arm relaxed a little, but didn't totally let her go. Huang Yueli wiggled a little in his embrace, in an attempt to struggle free. "You let go first. Woo-woo." Following that, she had yet to finish one sentence before Li Moying moved close to her and pressed his lips onto hers. Li Moying's kiss was very, very passionate, and extremely strong, overbearing, resolute, not allowing any rejection. Even though Huang Yueli was in his embrace, she almost fainted due to suffocation, but what he did was only to release her for one breath's time. Just as Huang Yueli rose her head up to take in air, he had once again sealed her lip. Once and again, repeatedly, as though there wasn't any stopping at all. After a long, long time later, Huang Yueli already lost track of how much time was lost, only knowing that her brain had already turned into a mess. Other than Li Moying, who was tightly holding on to her, there was nothing left. Eventually, after Li Moying felt that missing corner in his herd had been slightly filled, he finally let her off. By now, Huang Yueli's lips had already turned into a bright red color, as though it was about to drip blood. She lightly pursed her lips. Indeed, it had become numb with no sense of feeling. Huang Yueli secretly called him beast in her heart as she used her eyes to stare daggers at Li Moying, with the intention to express her fury towards him. You can also listen on. But she herself hadn't noticed that her pair of watery eyes had already become blood-filled due to suffocation and desire. Her two eyes were bright red, like a rabbit, and that furious pressing and anxious look, rather than saying that it posed any threat, might as well say, it was filled with an unspeakable temptation. Li Moying saw this, and there was a slight change in his gaze, as he suddenly felt that a certain part of his lower body, turning slightly rigid and uncomfortable. But now wasn't the best time to get intimate. Being stared at intently by that pair of deep and penetrating peach blossom eyes, Huang Yueli felt like she was starting to lack oxygen once again, as though she was about to faint. That pair of eyes was simply too beautiful, totally the same as Mu Chengying. That kind of deep gaze which could enter one's soul, was something which no one could imitate. Huang Yueli's little hand tugged onto his shirt at his waist and was just about to speak. Suddenly, she heard Li Moying opening his mouth first. I'm sorry. Huang Yueli went into a blank before she gave a puzzled reply. Sorry? Why did this word suddenly pop out? Should it be I miss you so much? However, Li Moying continued speaking. I should have kissed you. I'm only too agitated from seeing you still alive, and slightly lost my control. I know I shouldn't do that, and I'll try my best to keep a distance from you. I'm extremely sorry for offending you this time. His voice started to chill slowly. Earlier he had missed Huang Yueli too much. Furthermore, he thought that he was really in an illusion of a dream. Since he was dreaming, then naturally he wanted to kiss, to hug, and in reality when he dreamt of Huang Yueli in the nights, he had done even more villous matters. So, he unhesitatingly kissed her, but as he kissed, he became aware that the Leah in front of him was actually real. In the midst of shock and joy, to ensure that the young lady in his embrace really existed, his kiss became even more intense. But now that his rationality had returned to his head, he discovered that he had committed a huge mistake. His Leah, no, she was no longer his. Anyway, Leah already had someone who she liked, and he didn't dare to use the fact that he was a man, and the advantage that his cultivation was much higher than hers, to coerce her to accept his kiss and touch. Thinking of this, Li Moying's heart crumpled into a burst of twitching pain. But he still loosened the grip on her arm, as he stood up. Huang Yueli was originally pressed against the rug on the ground being kissed wildly, and her clothes disoriented, face flushed red. In the end this man actually just patted his ass and ran away, displaying a regretting past deeds expression, then leaving a word sorry. Wasn't this scene a little too funny? Huang Yueli first went into a short daze, then subsequently grabbing Li Moying's lower hem of his robe, as she tugged him hard downward. Li Moying was still nursing his distress and he wasn't standing properly, hence he totally didn't expect to be sneaked an attack by Huang Yueli at all. So, just that tug alone made him lost his balance immediately as he fell down onto Huang Yueli. Seeing that he was about to fall onto Huang Yueli, Li Moying finally reacted in time, and at the last moment, he stretched out his hand to prop himself up, hovering just above Huang Yueli's body. I'm sorry, I didn't stand properly. Li Moying said that and was just about to get up. Huang Yueli was utterly flustered and exasperated. She might as well use both her hands to hug onto Li Moying's neck, and using force, she flipped over and pressed him below her. You can also listen on. Li Moying was stunned for just that one moment when Huang Yueli had already squeezed herself to his face, and her pointed nose touched against his nose's tip, as that pair of watery large eyes was right in front of his face. Li Moying's breathing became heavy. The young lady's soft body was tightly pressed against his, warm and tempting. This young lass had never been so obedient, doing what she was told, so proactive before. For a moment, Li Moying wanted badly to lock her tightly, pressing her down and then doing what he wanted to do. That desire was extremely strong, as though he had been thinking about it for many years, for a long, long time, which had already set in deep into his soul. His two hands which were hanging on the ground clenched into fists, as his fingers sunk into his palm, forcing himself to control himself. Because he still clearly remembers the expression and tone when Huang Yueli said she had someone whom she liked. That kind of tender yearning was something which he couldn't hope to have. However, just as his self-control was about to collapse, Huang Yueli suddenly lowered her head and gave him a peck on his face. Her action was light and quick, like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water, when it withdrew back immediately. Li Moying took a couple of breaths' time before he finally reacted. He seemed to have snuck a kiss by her. Huang Yueli's face was filled with a suspicious red blush. That. I'm sorry, because you're just too handsome, so. I kissed you. Anyway, being kissed by me, you don't lose anything, right? Li Moying was tongue-tied, as he felt that he must be going crazy. Was he in a dream, or had he developed hallucination? His Leah would automatically kiss him, and gave such a bashful smile. Had his soul detachment illness become so serious that the minute it acted up, it actually revealed the dream in his mind, turning it to become so alike as though it was real? Huang Yueli lowered her head to see his dazed look and suddenly felt slightly comedic. She had never thought that the man whom she liked was usually so overbearing and powerful. And he actually had a dazed moment like this. This intense difference made Huang Yueli's heart filled with warmth, because this man only appeared in this way in front of her. For the longest time, he had only shown such difference towards her. The gentleness in his eyes were only for her. Thinking of this, Huang Yueli just wanted to explain the whole truth to him clearly and quickly. They had already wasted so much time, wasting a total of 2 lifetimes, so in future, they must cherish their affinity and stay happy together. But seeing Li Moying still in a daze, Huang Yueli's hand turned itchy as she pinched him on his face, as she was gasping how smooth his skin felt, as she sat up and pulled Li Moying along with her. Get up, I have something very important to tell you. She used her strength to grab his arm upwards, but after tugging him for some time, he actually didn't budge at all. This man was just too heavy. Li Moying finally felt some actuality. As he saw his little fox rolling her eyes back several times at him, he finally remembered to climb up. Leah, why are you? He agitatedly grabbed Huang Yueli's shoulders and wanted to speak. Shut up, can you listen to me first? Huang Yueli broke off his words. Li Moying didn't expect to be howled at by her. As he went into a daze again and nodded his head, Huang Yueli pointed her chin, like a mighty queen. Sit over there, and listen to me. Merry Christmas Eve everyone. Christmas tree wrapped present Christmas tree, you can also listen on. Li Moying was helpless, as he could only listen to her commands and sat on the chair by the side, as he turned his eyes to look at the young lady's dainty face that was bright like sunlight. He was finally slightly awake. Earlier the warmth in his embrace was real, especially when the two of them were intensely tangled together, that kind of satisfaction which melted the terror in his heart. Other than Leah herself, there was no one else who could do that. So, his Leah had indeed returned. But Li Moying's heart was filled with countless doubts. He just wanted to ask but was shoved back by Huang Yueli. Helpless, he could only sit there obediently, waiting for his queen to give further instructions. Huang Yueli stood in front of him, as she said out the words clearly, Li Moying, I like you. Li Moying had finally managed to regain some senses. In the end, the minute Huang Yueli opened her mouth, it seemed like a bolt of lightning, striking him disoriented once again. His thick brows creased slightly, as his penetrative black pupils stared at Huang Yueli for a moment, and his first reaction was actually, Leah, are you all right? Are you sick? Or have you lost your memories? Huang Yueli was stunned, as she didn't expect that for the first time in her life, in confessing to the person she liked, the male lead actually had such a response. She went into a mad rage instantly, as she shot upwards to Li Moying like an arrow, grabbing his collar. Hey, what do you mean? Didn't you hear me say I like you? You actually asked if I'm sick or lost my memories. Are you getting your facts right? The one who is sick or lost memories is you. Is it because you don't like me anymore, or are you regretting it now? So, you're intentionally acting silly? I didn't. I wouldn't dare. Li Moying was unable to give a convincing explanation for self-defense. After being tortured by his violent little fox, he began to reminisce. I really didn't hear you wrongly. You like me. How is that possible? A huge shocking joy arose from his inner heart, as he simply didn't believe in his ears, not believing that what he heard was the truth. To win Leah's heart was something that he had yearned for night and day, But every time he had some hopes raised, but it was broken completely by Huang Yueli once and again. Just as he was completed devastated, and was prepared to give up any hopes, to silently protect her, his Leah actually said, she liked him? Even in his dreams, it wasn't so beautiful. Huang Yueli pouted her lips. Why is it not possible? You're so handsome, and so powerful, and you treat me so well. If I don't like you, who else should I like? Hearing Huang Yueli's non-stingy praises, Li Moying's lips started to curl upwards, as he couldn't control his smile at all. Although, what you say is a reality of what everyone knows, but, the last time you obviously told me that you already have someone you like, so you cannot like me? Huang Yueli's smile froze, as she embarrassedly replied, about this was actually a mistake. It's all my fault for being too dumb. Of course, you're also very dumb. Her last two sentences were said so softly, as though she was mumbling to herself so Li Moying didn't heard it clearly. He frowned and asked, what did you say? What mistake? I remember it clearly. You said, you liked a person for a long time, and he is a 9th stage realm peerless top expert. And furthermore, he loves you and treats you really well. He's able to let you become the person whom all the young ladies in Soaring Heaven's continent envy. Recalling Huang Yueli's resolute words, Li Moying's heart started to grow in pain silently. You can also listen on. The gaze which he threw onto Huang Yueli started to become estranged. Although he didn't know why Huang Yueli suddenly confessed to him, and he indeed loved her till the end of his life, but he wasn't silly at all. There had been no one at all who would change their character within a short period of time to like another person. For Huang Yueli to say this, there would definitely be a reason, a motive. Actually, Li Moying didn't mind if the girl he liked had any motive, and no matter what Huang Yueli wanted him to do, he would disregard the price, or ask for any payback and helped her do what she wanted. But she didn't want to hear that kind of false confession, because he really would treat it as real, he really would believe her. And if in the end, Huang Yueli were to regret once more, this would definitely throw him deep into the abyss, consigned to eternal damnation. Before he met Huang Yueli, Li Moying had already thought of himself as having a heart of stone. There was nothing which he couldn't do, but now, he got to admit that he had a fatal weak point, which was this young lady in front of him, who could easily make him totally refuted. Seeing Li Moying's face revealing a pained expression, Huang Yueli's heart also started to tremble. She immediately pounced over to hug him. I'm not lying to you, I really like you. I've always only liked you. But there is really some misunderstanding, and I didn't expect it to turn out like this. Are you willing to listen to my explanation? Hearing the young lady in his embrace making a solemn vow repeatedly emphasizing her feelings, Li Moying's heartbeat started to speed up. Should he look forward to this time? She's really decided to open her heart to him. Li Moying stretched out his hand to hold on to hers, as he replied in a deep voice softly, all right, I'll listen to you, but you cannot bluff me. Huang Yueli looked at his eyes. I will not bluff you, but I'm afraid you will not believe in me. Li Moying seemed to have felt her apprehensiveness, as his gaze turned gentle. As long as you're willing to speak, I'll believe you. In actual fact, Huang Yueli felt that there was a 99% chance that Li Moying would think she's taking nonsense, but at least hearing his pacification, her heart started to quieten down. Huang Yueli sat by his side, as she thought for a moment before she opened her mouth. This matter needs to start from our past life. Past life? Li Moying had already decided that, no matter what Huang Yueli said, and how ridiculous it was, he insisted on believing the person whom he liked. But even though he had this sort of determination, at the first instance when Huang Yueli opened her mouth, the first sentence made him stunned. Huang Yueli firmly nodded her head as she replied, right, previous life. Why are you so shocked? Didn't you said that you will believe me regardless? I'm only a little shocked. All right, do continue. Li Moying was only astonished for a moment when he settled down. Huang Yueli was reminiscing as she spoke softly, you probably couldn't believe that I still had my past life's memories when I entered this body. But for the first 14 years of my life, my memories had been sealed, and had always been very blurry. Until 1 year ago, it was because of one life and death incident where I had suffered provocation, hence recovering my past life's memories. Recalling my identity from my past life. If any ordinary person were to hear this, they would probably think she was still sleep-talking. But to a top expert with broad knowledge like Li Moying, he had heard of rumors of practitioners whose souls had reincarnated, so he could still accept this news. He turned and looked at Huang Yueli as he asked curiously, "What is your identity, in your past life?" You can also listen on. Huang Yueli raised her eyes as she looked at him, as she spoke out the words distinctly, "Mythical Flame Palace's young palace master Huang Yueli." A clang sound was heard as a ceramic cup which Li Moying was holding onto, fell onto the ground, shattering into pieces. His eyes widened like full moons. "What did you say?" "Your previous life. W.S. Mythical Flame Palace's young palace master Huang Yueli? Soaring Heaven's Continent's #1 armament master?" Huang Yueli nodded. This, Li Moying felt that his heart wasn't able to accept such a huge shock. Who was Huang Yueli? Even though she had already passed on for more than 15 years, but her reputation still remained through the entire Soaring Heaven's Continent, like thunder. The previous #1 beauty of Soaring Heaven's Continent, #1 armament master, and the strongest among the fire-attributed practitioners. Her beauty, as well as her exceptional yet unconventional refining art, was something which no one could mimic even until today. And the tear-jerking relationship she had with the #1 top expert Mu Chengying. Thinking of this, Li Moying's heart jumped swiftly. But Huang Yueli didn't notice his slight change of expression, as she continued listing down examples, trying to convince him of her identity. "I know this kind of thing sounds unbelievable. But if you think carefully, you'd discover many evidences which could prove my identity. Armament refining is such a difficult skill to learn, but I've never had any master, yet easily became an armament master. To the fact that even when I still couldn't cultivate, I could already refine third-grade profound armament, don't you find it weird? That's because of my previous life's experience, which allowed me to display my potential to the greatest degree. And, you also know that, I also know how to set up arrays, right? Haven't you ever thought of this? Why is it that at my age, I had such high accomplishments in armament refining and arrays? Most people, even if they started learning while still in their mother's womb, they couldn't possibly be this incredible. That's because, these are all things which I've learnt in my previous life. But because of my cultivation that I was limited, hence could not display my full power. Furthermore, in my first 14 years, I had always been treated like trash who could not cultivate. But it has only been barely a year, not only am I not trash, I've also reached 4th stage realm in a jiffy. Don't you find it ridiculous? All these are because of the cultivation method which I'm using to train, which were also obtained in my past life's memories." And Huang Yueli added more and more examples, all of which were obvious evidences, just because she was afraid that Li Moying wouldn't believe her, so she made it especially detailed. However, Li Moying only heard the first few bits and had totally believed her saying. Because these suspicious points on Huang Yueli was something which he was knew especially well. A strong, intelligent, elegant young lady, while attracting all his attention, she had indeed many suspicious points on her. Li Moying always knew that his Leah had secrets on her, and furthermore, a huge amount of secrets, so all these suspicious points which Huang Yueli mentioned, he had all thought of it previously. But at that moment, Li Moying didn't think of investigating thoroughly because the familiarity towards her came from the deepest depths of his heart, trusting and liking her. Even though those are her secrets, it also made Li Moying felt that she was lovable. Now that Huang Yueli expressed her past life's identity, then those suspicious points had instantly become explainable. In this way, what reason did Li Moying had to not believe her words? However, Li Moying remained silent. You can also listen on. Because there was something more important which kept nagging repeatedly in his mind. It was the matter related to Huang Yueli and Mu Chengying. When Huang Yueli's real identity was exposed, the first thing Li Moying thought about was her relationship with her and Mu Chengying. That year, this was the most eye-catching couple in the entire Soaring Heaven's Continent. Every single move they made captured everyone's attention, and was the most enviable couple. Every time they appeared, it attracted everyone's attention, and numerous people fell down to worship Huang Yueli, and there were numerous young ladies who had feelings for Li Moying, but right from the start, They only had each other in their eyes. Although Li Moying had never witnessed this grand occasion personally, but just based on the sect's few elders' memories, who had been lucky enough to see them, Li Moying could totally imagine how much this couple was envied by everyone. Once, Li Moying secretly hoped that one day, he and Leah would become such a couple as well. In the end, as things were unpredictable, Leah actually turned into Huang Yueli. Recalling what she said previously, the last time when she rejected him, didn't not make any sense now. The person she liked was Mu Chengying, and he indeed was soaring heaven's continent's #1 top expert, someone at a level which he cannot hope to achieve. These words were absolutely correct. Whereas Huang Yueli liked Mu Chengying, wasn't just a matter of 1 or 2 days. Their relationship, naturally wasn't something which he, the third party, could supersede. Huang Yueli was talking on, when she discovered the man beside her keeping her silence, and finally she found it curious, so she stopped. Her head tilted to a 45 degrees angle, as she got closer to size him up. Surely you're not scared stunned, right? Or you don't believe me? I already said I'm not lying to you. Li Moying then opened his mouth. I know, you didn't lie to me. The minute he opened his mouth, he then realized how hoarse his voice sounded, and how uncertain his tone was. When Huang Yueli heard that, she pouted in dissatisfaction. Since you believe me, then why are you still showing me a face? Don't tell me that being the #1 armament master is something which is embarrassing for you. No, there's no such matter. Li Moying took a deep breath as he tried his hardest to maintain his composure. You're so incredible, of course I'd be very happy, extremely happy. Huang Yueli's eyes were full of disbelief as she stared hard at him. You call this happy? If you're really happy, why don't you show me your smile? Li Moying swept her a glance as he cried out silently. How was he supposed to smile in this kind of situation? But Huang Yueli's little angry face look made his heart melt, so he could only tug an upwards into a curve on his lips. Huang Yueli angrily retorted, this is considered a smile, it's even uglier than crying. Li Moying remained silent for a while, as he couldn't keep up with the pretense and broke down as he said, then what do you want me to do? Congratulate you and Mu Chengying a blissful life. Huang Yueli was stunned, as she blinked her eyes, and blinked again. That enlarged eyes were simply too lovable, and Li Moying gloomily realized that no matter what, he would always be attracted by this young lady in front of him. Even though he knew that the person she really liked was someone else. This was like setting a curse on him. Huang Yueli knew that he was thinking awry, and right after she realized that, the corners of her lips rose upwards, as she gave a crafty smile. She intentionally got close to him and said, then, now that you know that your love rival is the #1 top expert, you don't like me anymore? You can also listen on. Li Moying took a deep breath as he stared intently at her. What do you hope for me to say? You obviously know that. I don't care who I need to go up against, and I can go anything for you. But, your heart obviously belongs to someone else, so why must you come and fool around with me? Do you feel a sense of achievement, seeing me being tortured badly like this? Seeing Li Moying's teeth flaring and heartbroken look, Huang Yueli knew that she had gone overboard, as she hurriedly mended the fence after the sheep were lost. She shook her head with all her might. No, I have no intention of fooling with you. My heart indeed belongs to someone, but, before she could finish her words, she was stopped by the gloomy Li Moying. Enough. I don't want to hear it anymore. He covered his ears, rejecting to hear more. Actually, he didn't need to listen to know how loving Huang Yueli and Mu Chengying were that year. The entire soaring heavens continent knew about it. He didn't need to hear the person involved repeat it once again. What enough? Listen to me. Huang Yueli stomp her feet, as she pounced over in an attempt to pull his hands down. But Li Moying's strength wasn't something which she could resist against, and the both of them were in a deadlock for quite a moment. Huang Yueli's entire person dangled on Li Moying's body, but she still wasn't able to make him listen to her properly. With this, Huang Yueli finally got enraged. She simply used brute force to pull Li Moying's arm, as she got close to his ear and shouted, do you know what I'm trying to say? Don't tell me you really didn't have any inkling at all, that you are Mu Chengying himself. The both of you are the same person. Li Moying's actions paused for a moment. Although he kept covering his ears, but Huang Yueli's shout was extremely loud, so much that even a deaf person was able to hear her. In actual fact, he had never thought about it, but this young lass was so petite, yet still able to make such a sharp, ear-piercing sound, so even though his palms were blocking his ears, he felt that his ears almost went deaf. He subconsciously put down his hand, as he spoke in shock. You. What are you saying? Why is it that I totally cannot understand anything at all? Huang Yueli finally managed to make him calm down, to listen to her, so of course she didn't want to waste any more time, as she hurriedly and anxiously continued talking. I say. You're Mu Chengying. Mu Chengying is you. Alright, stop rebuking me, just listen to me finish up this, alright? Seeing that Li Moying was going to jump up in shock, Huang Yueli hurriedly pressed on his shoulders, and as she was afraid that he would move around and not listen to her speak, she might as well sit down on Li Moying's thigh, pressed him down and grabbed his wrists. Li Moying lowered his head to look at her in astonishment, only to discover that Huang Yueli totally didn't notice their ambiguous position, and only cared about explaining. It was only after the quarrel we had that day, when I discovered this point, and although before that, I did have my suspicions, but I had never put any deep thoughts into it. You yourself probably don't know that you have a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes, exactly the same as Mu Chengying. Besides that, the gaze which you cast upon others is exactly the same as well. Honestly speaking, if you were related by blood, it's very normal for your eyes to look the same, but that kind of expression which he gives off, I've never seen it on a second person yet. This, perhaps it's just a coincidence. Could you be thinking too much? Li Moying felt that this reason was a little too implausible, as he couldn't help but butted in. Huang Yueli took a look at him, as she continued, and, the tone which you usually speak, plus your actions are very alike. You are also a thunder attribute practitioner, and the habit the both of you have are the same when wielding your sword. You especially like to twist your wrist before you draw out your sword. You can also listen on. Li Moying's mind went blank for a moment. He was taken aback because he indeed had this small habit, but as his speed of striking was usually very fast, even 9th stage realm practitioners might not be able to see it clearly. He had not expected Huang Yueli to have observed him in detail, so much that she even knew about this. Huang Yueli spoke frankly with assurance. Actually, this is an unnecessary move, and it would lower the drawing speed, so if anyone else had thid little action, they would have been rectified by their master or elder. Except for you, I've only seen Mu Chengying done this. The reason for this? I'm guessing you two must be the same, which is your master don't dare to control you. Don't rebuke, you can never win me. Li Moying originally wanted to rebuke, but Huang Yueli had spoken out first, to shove his words back into his mouth. He bore with it for a moment, but still couldn't keep it in, so he opened his mouth and said, This is even more far-fetched. I know my drawing speed is a flaw, but I don't believe that only I and Mu Chengying have this little action. Alright, you don't believe. Then, there's, Huang Yueli used her hand to hold up his good-looking face, forcing Li Moying to look at her eyes. The tone and habit which you talk are exactly the same as Mu Chengying in many ways. For example, you lie to call me Leah, little fox. These are something which only you and Mu Chengying would call me, and even the action and feeling when you kiss me, the reaction you give when you're jealous, often makes me subconsciously feel that you're him. That's what you feel only. I'm not Mu Chengying's replacement. Li Moying shouted out in an utterly discomfited manner. Not knowing why, his head felt a burst of terror, as though his entire brain was going to be split into half. Half of it believed in Huang Yueli's words, because if what she said was true, then he would be Leah's official sweetheart, former life's lovers, deep-rooted love, which no one was able to split them apart. But the other half of him was afraid of accepting this. The minute he thought that this might be possible, his brain started to work up in pain, as his heart was empty, with an ominous feeling that something bad would happen. As though, behind the truth, there was something which he wasn't willing to touch. Huang Yueli was speechless to the max, as she didn't expected Li Moying to not believe her, and even thought that he was a replacement. She shouted out loudly, You really want to anger me to death. Do you really not have any memories at all? The things you said when your soul detachment illness acted up, don't you remember a single bit of it at all? Li Moying was stunned. What did I say? When my soul detachment illness acts up, my memories are jumbled up, and I don't know what I do at all. Alright, looks like you really don't have any memories, Then I shall remind you. Every time your illness acts up, you'd always say some absurd things, making me feel that I think of Mu Chengying too much, that I'm hallucinating. But the last time when we separated, you said a lot, and all those are what Mu Chengying told me before, exactly the same. If you're not Mu Chengying, may I ask, how do you know what he and I said when we're alone in the room? Were you eavesdropping on us outside our room? Li Moying was tongue-tied. You say it as though it really happened, surely it's not true, right? Could it be that I really said that? You can also listen on. Rubbish. Why do I need to lie to you on this matter? What advantages would I gain? You really have no recollection at all? Huang Yueli's face was filled with anxiety, as she grabbed his arm tightly, her entire body pressing against him, as she stared at Li Moying's eyes while shooting her questions. Li Moying's brows were tightly knotted, as his expression turned gloomy, falling into deep thoughts. He had actually believed half of what Huang Yueli said, because she's not the first person to say he would talk nonsense when his soul detachment illness acted up. When he was very young, Mo Yi had once relayed to him the things which he said when he acted up, which was that he was worried about a young girl to not leave, to stay. At that time Li Moying had not met Huang Yueli, and he felt that he was a cold-hearted person with a cold attitude, so there was no possibility that he would get tangled with a young lady, so naturally he snorted disdainfully at Mo Yi's description. Furthermore, when his illness acted up, his conscience was totally messed up, and in his mind, it would indeed appear some memories which were obviously not related to him, with people whom he had not met appearing, and places which he had not been to. In the past, he had not given any deep thoughts about this. Although he did suspect if these were his past life's memories, but eventually he felt that there was no meaning to it. But right now, linking it to what Huang Yueli had said, putting all these together, it seemed that the truth was about to be born. His eyebrows slowly relaxed, and Huang Yueli noticed this, as she urgently added on, "Actually, I always had a guess, which is your soul detachment illness, had something to do with your past life. I heard Brother Mo Yi mentioned this before, that your soul detachment illness was not something which you had since you were born, but it only happened when you were around 6 years old, am I correct?" Li Moying nodded. "That's right, it indeed is this case. When I was very young, I was extremely weak, and often had fainting spells in the middle of the night, but never had soul detachment illness. Ever since I almost died in the snow when I was 6, after Master found me and brought me back to Celestial Light Sect, my body suddenly became stronger, and my cultivation talent started to appear, but, for no obvious reason, I've also developed soul detachment illness." Huang Yueli said, "So, the change in your life was 14 years ago. And 14 years ago was the year when I was attacked in the northern ice fields, and had no choice but to self-explode. Later on, I was reborn in this current body." Whereas Mu Chengying was said to have shut himself within Blue Profound Sect, going into rigid closed cultivation. To this, what do you think? Li Moying's face was gloomy. "What can I possibly think? Mu Chengying had deep sentiments towards you." Huang Yueli went into a daze, as she apparently didn't expect him to sprout out such a sour statement, but immediately she flew into a rage out of humiliation as she stretched out her fair little hand, and pinched Li Moying's back of the hand hard. "What are you talking about? Can you stop flying into a jealous rage, being jealous of yourself? Do you know how laughable it is? I'm talking to you about something proper. Don't you feel that everything which happened 14 years ago is just too coincidental? Could it be that this body's original soul had perished in the snowy night, and your spirit obtained this body instead? What joke are you cracking?" Li Moying apparently could not accept this, saying, "What you want to say is, I'm actually not me, but a lonely soul dominating this body. And this ghost even forgot my own name, what I did, and what kind of identity I had. Then what exactly am I?" Li Moying's expression was extremely ugly. You can also listen on. Knowing that he actually wasn't his own self, no one would feel good about it. At this moment, Li Moying felt that if what Huang Yueli said was true, then wouldn't his entire life be a huge joke? After living for 20 years, yet he didn't even know who he was, and furthermore, to not even be able to recall it till this day, the part of his most important memories. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand, she caressed it gently on his handsome face, Her slender fingers slightly increased in force around his eyebrows, trying to placate his inner heart's melancholy. But, she lowered her voice as she continued, but, you always remembered, who was the woman who you like. Li Moying's entire body quivered, like he was struck by lightning. Huang Yueli's lips curled into a sweet smile, as her watery big eyes were flooded with feelings. Even if you forgot everything, you still remembered that you like me, isn't it? Even though you have no memories, and was not able to recognize me, you still like me so much. You dare say it's not love at first sight for you? You dare say, from the first time you met me, it already felt as though we knew one another for a long, long time? Li Moying's thoughts were already swirling, and messy into a bundle, as numerous pieces of memories and consciousness started to fly around, causing his head to be in extreme pain. But, right before him was a pair of eyes, so bright, and so beautiful. Which was exactly the same as all his memories, and the dream which he kept seeing at night. Nothing had changed, from the past. Leah, he spoke haltingly in a low voice, and his voice sounded like it was choking. He grabbed Huang Yueli's hand, and clasped their 10 fingers together, as it grew tighter and tighter. Huang Yueli raised her head to look at him, and in an instant she was taken in by that pitch-black night-like pair of pupils, totally unable to move away her eyes. The two of them leaned in closer and closer. Just as their lips were about to touch each other, Li Moying suddenly gave out a low moan, and subsequently, he shoved Huang Yueli aside, as he grabbed his head, and bent down. Huang Yueli was shoved by him, and fell down from his thigh, almost falling flat on the ground. She finally managed to stabilize herself when she heard Li Moying's groans of pain. Moying, what's the matter? Huang Yueli's eyes grew large, as she rushed over. Li Moying suddenly lifted his head, and in that pitch-black eyes, glints of indigo-blue rays could be seen, as though lightning power were about to gush out from his body. Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment, when she suddenly recalled that today was full moon's night, and Li Moying, from his looks, could it be that his soul detachment illness was about to act up? In actual fact, Li Moying was indeed on the verge of flaring up. When he returned to his courtyard earlier, there were already signs of flaring up. Originally, when he saw Huang Yueli by his side, feeling her presence, that raging energy in his body gradually started to subside, and if there weren't any accidents, today would go by safely. But unfortunately, Huang Yueli told him a large deal of their past lives' memories. Li Moying let her explain and tried hard not to recall his past life's memories, but no matter how hard he tried, there were only a few pieces of memories floating around, and one by one it flashed past. When he tried to look carefully at it, he then realized that there was nothing at all. He became more and more flustered, not accepting the fact that he had lost his memories, so he tried even harder to recall. But the more he recalled, the more painful his head became, as though it was about to explode. Finally, he seemed to almost recall something. You can also listen on. For that one instance, he seemed to have seen Huang Yueli in her past life, wearing a light purple gold lining flowing dress, the figure dancing under that sakura tree, seeing her dressed in red, fearless and brace, with a zither in her hands, causing a fire sea which covered the earth and skies, engulfing the entire world. Following that, the image in front of him changed. He saw Huang Yueli being surrounded and attacked on the northern ice fields, and although she was already seriously injured, but her spine remained straight and on that pitilessly beautiful face, the usual aloof and arrogant expression remained. She said, Huang Yueli's life is never given by anyone else. The flame was ablaze, as an earth-shattering explosion was heard, shaking the entire ice field. Amid the blaring flame, that young lady's sweet smile slowly dispersed. Li Moying's head started to be in more pain, so much that he was unable to differentiate if what he saw was reality or hallucination. He only felt the pain in his heart about to explode, and he knew he needed more energy, a much more powerful energy, enough to twist the entire thing around, an energy strong enough to make his beloved come back to life. Because of that, even if it required him to sell his soul, even if he had to fall into hell, it didn't matter to him at all. Furthermore, he did. No, what on earth did he do? Li Moying's head suddenly became blank, he couldn't recall anything, and couldn't control anything, leaving only that powerful thunder-attributed energy which he had no way to suppress, threading through all the arteries in his body, making him felt that he was filled with energy, Enough to destroy the entire world. Anyway, his Leah was no longer around, so even if he made this world accompany her in death, what did it matter? Li Moying laughed uncontrollably, totally not sensing anything. But from an outsider's view, his laugh was very weird, very horrifying, and very terrifying. He took a few steps outwards immediately, and with a wave of his right hand, the surrounding thunder-attributed energy instantly gathered in his palm. Just as he was about to destroy the surroundings, suddenly, a familiar sweet voice rang by the side of his ear. Li Moying, what are you doing? Stop, quickly stop. Li Moying's head turned dizzy again. This voice was so familiar. So familiar that it made his heart ache. Who was this? No, he still couldn't recall. Who cares? Who cared whoever it was? Anyway, he wanted everyone to accompany her in death. But, after that voice cried out a few times, it stopped, and after that, a figure came flying towards him. Li Moying subconsciously wanted to strike. There was someone who dared to come near him at this kind of timing. He had no hesitation to strike that person into coal. But, this time, his arm seemed as though it was filled with lead, unable to stretch out no matter what. Not right. This wasn't right. What on earth was not right? He couldn't tell clearly, only feeling that his head was in more and more pain. Just as he was hesitating, that warm body had already flew into his embrace. As the young lady's voice rang again, Li Moying, clear up your mind. Are you forcing me? Don't you dare say I'm harassing you later. Harass? What harassment? Not waiting for Li Moying's messy memories to come out with a solution, something soft had already landed on his lips. The sweet presence instantly filled his breathing. That familiar feeling miraculously pacified his anxious and unsettled heart, as though the treasure which he had lost had once again returned to his embrace. You can also listen on. That feeling where he found something which he lost made him totally relaxed. Huang Yueli kissed him hard, because every time she pacified Li Moying, he would always kiss her with force, so she guessed that only using force to kiss him would be of use. However, this round, she had only nibbled 2 mouthfuls on Li Moying's lips when she heard Li Moying gave out a low moan. Following that, the man's strong arm wrapped around her slender waist and took her entire slender body into his embrace, as he adjusted their positions, and therefore, he turned from guest to the host as he started to kiss her instead. This kiss was unexpectedly lingering and gentle. Li Moying patiently kissed her, as though he was kissing an exquisite treasure, as though he was afraid that just using a little more strength would shatter her to bits. This kiss made Huang Yueli totally drunk initially, but after a while, she felt slightly dissatisfied. This man was so gentle today, but she liked his usual overbearing stance. What's the matter with him today? Huang Yueli gave a dissatisfied humph as she grabbed Li Moying's collar and bluntly bit his lips. Li Moying's body turned stiff for a moment, but subsequently, he seemed to be like a lion which had been awoken, as he pounced towards his own prey. He lifted Huang Yueli up, and with quiet steps, left the storage room, using one feet to kick open the door to the next room and threw her onto the bed. Huang Yueli was seeing stars from the throw, and she just managed to steady herself as she hurriedly used her arm to prop herself up, as she turned back to take a look. Moying, are you okay already? Right. Before she could complete her words of concern, Huang Yueli's eyes widened like full moons, with a shocked expression, as she started to stutter while talking. Because, right in front of her, was an image of a handsome man coming out of the bath. In the darkness, under the weak moonlight, she saw Li Moying already pulling away the hook off his collar, revealing an exquisitely beautiful skin and collarbone, and that smooth yet energetic lines, which made Huang Yueli subconsciously swallowing her saliva. But she realized very quickly that this wasn't the time for admiration. She hurriedly spoke out, Moying, you don't be so agitated, I'm asking you a question, is your headache better or not? Li Moying didn't reply to her, but stretched his hand downwards, as he slowly untied his waist belt. The waist belt was casually thrown onto the ground and Li Moying's shirt was wide open, displaying his perfect figure right in front of Huang Yueli's eyes. The minute Huang Yueli's eyes fell on his body, she instantly could not shift it aside. She was still stammering as she asked, No, don't, you. First answer my question. That gaze, looked as though she couldn't stop herself from pouncing over to feel him all over. Li Moying slowly walked to the front of the bed, and taking a stride, he climbed onto the bed, as he suspended above Huang Yueli. Every time he moved forward, Huang Yueli would move backward, trying to avoid him, but Li Moying kept getting closer. Not too long later, Huang Yueli's back pressed against the bedsheet, as she was entirely pressed down under him. Leah, a scorching man's breath blew against her face. That familiar and pleasant scent made Huang Yueli dizzy, totally unable to find her will. Li Moying gave a low laugh, as his mellow voice made one drunk. When he bent down and kissed her lips once again, Huang Yueli felt as though she was going to be bewitched till she fainted. You can also listen on. While she was enjoying Li Moying's kiss, she was also attempting to struggle. Li Moying, wait. Wait a while. Why must I wait? I want to kiss you, touch you, to feel your existence, so will you be obedient and listen? Didn't you say that you liked me? After Li Moying rebuked her, he bluntly peeled open Huang Yueli's hook in front of her chest, and the minute that fair slender neck was exposed, Li Moying's glare became deep. He lowered his head. Ah! Huang Yueli gasped loudly. Li Moying actually bit her on her neck, leaving visible teeth marks. You. Let go of me. Huang Yueli tried her best to struggle and to push him aside, but Li Moying seemed as though he was bent on leaving a mark on her body. Not only did he not let go, he even continued sucking on the area where his teeth marks were, insistent on nibbling an inerasable mark. The more she struggled, the tighter Li Moying hugged. Huang Yueli was crying without tears. Actually, she didn't mind having a relationship with Li Moying, although they haven't officially wedded, but they had already been through 2 lifetimes torture, and in each other's heart, they were closer than any ordinary couple. But he had to at least let her be sure if he was conscious or not. Furthermore, what kind of timing was this? Li Moying had just relapsed, and even if he managed to suppress it down, but won't his energy be depleted? Just as Huang Yueli had no other ideas, she heard a shuffle of moving feet coming from the corridor. Where's he? Where has Master gone to? He's not in the study, nor is he in the cultivation room. Where on earth has he gone to? Has he already ran out? Then we're in trouble. Could Master be going on a killing spree again? What situation is this? Xiao Qi, didn't you saw Third Miss had already returned safety and is waiting for Master in the courtyard? Why had Master suddenly acted up? That's right, have you seen the wrong person? Or have the both of them starting quarreling again? Really, that's enough, they're not even kids. They obviously love each other to death. Why must they keep arguing every day? Ari, stop talking about these. Beware that Master hears you, and skins you alive. Quickly find them. Master's illness is acting up, and Third Miss has gone missing. Could she have been killed by Master while he's angry? At the entrance, a pile of guards' discussions could be heard. When he heard that Huang Yueli had returned, they were already assured, feeling that throwing Third Miss to their master would give them a peace of mind, so all of them ran out to have a drink. However, just as they were enjoying themselves, suddenly they saw lightning flashes and thunder rolls coming from the rear mountain. When everyone hurriedly ran out to take a look, they discovered that Li Moying appeared on the top of the courtyard, and a streak of terrifying lightning, and the surrounding 4 areas turned into a lightning zone, as several miles within the vicinity were filled with thunder attributed profound energy, focused on the little courtyard, as it speedily gathered together. The shadow guards were experienced people and they only needed one look, when they knew things were in bad shape. This was the signs of Li Moying's soul detachment illness flaring up, and if this continued, in no time, Li Moying was going to rush out and go on a killing spree. All of them had no time to consider why while Li Moying and Huang Yueli were together. His illness was going to act up any moment and they could only use all their might to run forward in desperation, praying at the same time that nothing would happen. No matter if it was Li Moying or Huang Yueli, nothing would happen to the both of them. You can also listen on. Otherwise, when Li Moying awoke the next morning, that would really be doomsday. Shadow guards were burning with anxiety as they rushed into the courtyard, only to discover that the lightning had quelled down, and the surrounding energy waves had also turned normal. But all of them were still worried, so they decided to enter the premise, to witness that Li Moying was safe and sound. The few of them searched the few outer rooms to find that it was empty, so they walked towards the bedroom towards the end of the corridor. Huang Yueli's ears pricked up as she listened to the shadow guards' voices outside, and her ears turned so red that smoke was almost emitted. She used a lot of force to push Li Moying's shoulder, trying her best to push him aside. If the shadow guards were to bump into this, then she would be too embarrassed to see anyone. However, Li Moying was like a heavy huge mountain, as he steadily pressed against her, not budging at all, his head still hanging on her neck, planting strawberries. Li Mo-ying, get up right now, do you hear me? Huang Yueli was already fuming with rage. What kind of timing was this? What was Li Moying thinking about? Did the man only used his lower body to think? She stretched out his hand, pull Li Moying's ear. Just at this moment, a pitter-patter of footsteps shuffling sound was heard closing in. How about the bedroom? Have you checked the bedroom yet? The door's open. Let me take a look, there seems to be someone. Gusts of screeching sounds which were about to pierce through the roof, and Huang Yueli's expression turned green instantly. Li Moying, however, seemed as though he had just regained his senses as his face revealed an astonishing look. But his reaction was so fast, which no ordinary man could imagine. Just within an instant, he moved right in front of Huang Yueli, as he used the blanket and wrapped her up tightly, without a single bit of indecent exposure. Thereafter, he turned around and faced the shadow guards at the entrance. When the shadow guards dashed into the room, what they saw was actually their master with a dissatisfied look, sitting right in front of the bed, and on the bed was a bundle of extremely suspicious lump. He. Master, you're all right, Master, we were just too worried about you. I did not expect that you're still busy. We're very sorry to have disturbed you, and third miss. That absence makes the heart fonder. We will scram tight now, please don't mind us, continue. When Huang Yueli heard the shadow guard's conversation, she had already guessed that they probably were laughing to death right now. It's just too embarrassing, and it's all Li Moying's fault. She buried her head into the pillow, pretending that she was an ostrich, not moving an inch. After some time, a large hand touched her face, as Li Moying's smiling voice was heard, Leah, come out and breathe some air, you will suffocate if you continue in this way. Huang Yueli continued to act dead, not moving at all. Li Moying laughed, they've already left and I've already given them a severe warning, then in future if the both of us are together, they're not to enter even if the room collapses. Do you want your face or not? Huang Yueli heard that and instantly her rage got to her, as she turned around and stared angrily at Li Moying. Li Moying's vision slipped downwards, as it laid on her neck which was filled with strawberries, and his lips curled upwards, revealing a pure man's satisfied smile. All right, I'm in the wrong, I'm shameless. He readily accepted her view and he automatically admitted his mistake. Anyway, the strawberries had already been planted. You can also listen on. As long as he could declare his sovereignty, what did getting scolded meant? Huang Yueli was rather speechless, as she stared at him angrily for quite some time. But Li Moying used that pair of peach blossom eyes to seduce her while looking at her. His eyes were filled with tenderness, so she was unable to blow up her anger at all. All right, Leah, don't be angry anymore. Li Moying cried out miserably, as he saw his little fox lifting her head, revealing her two little fangs, smiling at him. He touched his own neck, and could feel that area being bitten by her in revenge, and furthermore that bite was very deep, as it had already started to bleed. Your sharp and pointed teeth are indeed like a little fox. He shook his head helplessly, but his tone was filled with affection. Huang Yueli was finally satisfied as she gave a cold harumph in a pampered manner. This is already letting you off easy. Who asked you to bully me? Why would I dare to bully you? You don't bully me, I'd already be thanking God. Of course, if you insist on bullying, you can also do as you wish. As long as you are willing to stay by my side, I'd already be satisfied. Li Moying sighed softly as he laid down beside her, hugging her and the blanket into his embrace. Huang Yueli naturally leaned towards him, and she put her head on his shoulder like a pillow, thereafter staring at his handsome face. So that means, you believe what I said? Li Moying lowered his eyes slightly, and with a deep voice he replied, believe. Huang Yueli pouted her lips unhappily, Why did you hesitate before answering me? Do you believe me or not? Li Moying lowered his head as he looked at her curious big eyes, replying helplessly, why would I not believe in whatever you say? Furthermore, those evidence which you had stated, I have no way of rebuking. But, this really make one feel surprised. I myself don't have any memories at all, so can't you just let me get used to it first? Huang Yueli replied, what's there to get used to? Are you not used to the truth about having a fiancé? Oh, right, forgot to tell you, in our previous lives before something happened to me in the northern ice fields, I'd already agreed to marry you, so no matter what, you've got a good deal, eh? When Li Moying heard that, he simply couldn't help but laugh out loud. I say, Leah, aren't you a little unreserved? Are you worried that I'd not marry you? You dare. Huang Yueli was wrapped up in the blanket, like a caterpillar, and originally her movements were already very inconvenient, but she still kicked him with all her might in the blanket. Li Moying say her grimace from the anger, as he immediately admitted defeat. All right, anyway it's all my fault. Whatever my wifey says is all correct. Haven't we gotten engaged long ago? You're the one who refused to admit it, whereas I cannot hope for it to be true. But, we can't get married right now. Huang Yueli went blank for a moment. Why? She had thought that Li Moying would be very impatient, wanting to take her under his wing. Li Moying replied, I'd better recall all my past life's memories before officially getting married, otherwise, I would feel. Huang Yueli pouted her lips, feel what? She actually had a premonition on what the man was trying to say. Indeed, Li Moying's penetrative black eyes swept past her face, as he lowered his voice, I'd feel that, you're looking at another man through me. To tell the truth, Leah, if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't your past life's lover, will you ever like me? Huang Yueli couldn't help but roll her eyes. Aren't you a little too bored? Being jealous of yourself? You can also listen on. Li Moying looked at her expression and was incredibly fond of it. His fingers gently curled around a lock of her silky hair, as he revolved it around his fingertips, playing with it. Huang Yueli shot him a glance and didn't have any expression, laying in his embrace, like a kitty cat which was about to fall asleep. To be able to stay like this, holding Huang Yueli into his embrace, speaking softly to her, whereas Huang Yueli obediently allowed him to hug her, without any resistance. To Li Moying, this was an image which he had always been dreaming of. At this moment, even if he was to die, he would also be willing. But there was still a sliver of uncertainty in his heart. Because the change in Huang Yueli's attitude was simply too fast, right before that, he had already confessed numerous times, but were mercilessly rejected by her. Now that Huang Yueli deemed that his past life was Mu Chengying, so she let down all her guard and wholeheartedly devoted herself into his embrace. If he still had all of Mu Chengying's memories, then he would be very, extremely, insanely happy. But, unfortunately, he couldn't recall anything at all. So, no matter how much evidences Huang Yueli provided, even he himself could also faintly felt the similarities between himself and Mu Chengying. But those just made him feel too unfamiliar. To the current him, Mu Chengying was just another person. He wasn't very certain that after this lifetime, could he really be the same as before? He already had a different person's experience, cultivation, and identity, but was still far away from then, so would Huang Yueli really still liked him as much as before? Perhaps, after some time when they were together, Huang Yueli would discover that things were there, but he was no longer the same, not the original him. By then, would she be extremely disappointed? Li Moying kept silent, and Huang Yueli finally could not endure it further as she raised her head and stared at him. Why are you not talking? Is it because you still don't believe me? Li Moying immediately shook his head. No, why would I not believe you? You will. Huang Yueli clenched her teeth as she spat out in ridicule. You still feel that you're not Mu Chengying. I'm telling you, this kind of secretly thinking too much, and anyhow being jealous, then subsequently stuffing it in your heart, and then telling me that there's nothing. This kind of behavior is exactly the same as in the past. In their past lives, she and Mu Chengying often got together and separated, and often quarreled. That wasn't totally her fault only. Mu Chengying was basically a huge vinegar pail, and later on he even started to let his imagination run wild but refused to ask her personally because of his pampered and arrogant attitude. This time, She made sure to have learnt from that, to crush the sapling of such horrendous behavior. Li Moying instantly was rendered speechless. He indeed did not have his past life's memories, but seeing his little fox acting in such a flustered and exasperated manner, he sensed a familiar feeling. As though, from a long time ago, they had always been getting along in this way. Huang Yueli noticed that he still kept silent, so she went close to his face, and explained with a pampered expression, "I really don't understand why you like to be jealous of your own self. I'm not even treating you as the replacement for your past life. Actually, after meeting you in this life, I've always liked you. Alright, indeed I've been rejecting you, but that was because I felt I was very strange. Why is it that I already had someone who I liked in my heart, but still moved by you? I felt that I was especially fickle. Whereas you had no memories at all, making me confused for the longest time yet. You can also listen on." Seeing Huang Yueli's melancholic look, Li Moying's mood actually uncontrollably lightened up. So, while he was being trapped by feelings, Huang Yueli wasn't totally outside the box, not totally unmoved. Huang Yueli stretched out her hand from the blanket, as she poked his chest. "Hey, are you listening to me or not?" Li Moying finally couldn't help but laughed out. "I heard you." Huang Yueli got into a rage. "Laugh? What are you laughing at? I've confessed to you so many times today. How about you? Don't you need to express anything to me?" Li Moying then realized that his little fox was feeling a loss. But as she today had indeed been out of his expectations, to be so frank, so bold. He had always thought that his Leah was those especially pampered and arrogant type of girl, so even if she loved him to death, she would not say it out. Huang Yueli was so angry that she flipped on the other side, but her waist was held on by a strong and powerful arm, as she was turned back to the man's side. The man's deep, mellow and sexy voice rang beside her ear. "Leah, you obviously know my feelings for you." Before he could finish his words, his scorching thin lips had already covered hers, as an entangling warm kiss drowned her. Huang Yueli's head instantly became dizzy, while she was still spitting with ridicule in her heart. Foul. Didn't he say to confess? Actually used his kiss to get past the stage. The second day morning, dawn had just broke. Two suspicious figures appeared from the little path, as they gazed towards Li Moying's courtyard from afar. These two people were Fatty Wang and Administrator Chen. They both bore an excited expression, as a complacent smile was hanging on their lips. "Has that little slut really gone to young sect master's courtyard yesterday? Uncle, did you see it for yourself? Isn't that so? I've even waited at the entrance for a long time, and saw young sect master returning with my own eyes. Even after young sect master entered his residence, that little slut still didn't come out, so she must have stayed inside. Surely not, right? Didn't they say that young sect master stayed on at sect master's place to discuss matters, and only returned back very late? That wretched lass actually didn't come out at all? I was still worried that she might have left early," Fatty Wang said in disbelief. Administrator Chen was fiddling with his beard, as his face was filled with a malicious smile. I was originally very worried. So I guarded the entrance, just because I was afraid that she would escape, and find a reason to chase her back, but that little lass really didn't come out. From what I think, she must have felt that she had the chance to get close to young sect master, probably even to climb up young sect master's bed, flying up the branches to turn into a phoenix. Really? Did she really think like that? Didn't she bother to see her own reflection? Eldest young miss has such peerless beauty, had to also woo young sect master for so many years, before she could barely enter young sect master's eye. With her looks, young sect master would probably not even take a look at her, right? Fatty Wang laughed so much that he couldn't stand straight. That's for sure, if young sect master were to take interest in her, I'd eat *T right here. Anyway, if she were to seduce young sect master automatically, then that would suit our intentions just fine. We don't even need to scheme her, and she would be torn into two halves by young sect master. How many female disciples had tried to seduce young sect master in the past? Which one of them didn't end up miserably? Administrator Chen replied, brimming with confidence. Fatty Wang also quipped, "That's right, if young sect master were really to even take a look at her, I'd also eat *T. Probably young sect master is going to come out really soon, so I'll be waiting here to see how miserable she is. You can also listen on. The two of them were discussing while joyful satisfaction, as their eyes opened wide, staring at Lee Moing's courtyard's main door without blinking. They had not discovered that right behind them, a group of shadow guards had already heard their conversation loud and clear. Although they had been driven away by Lee Moing yesterday, but it was the shadow guards' responsibility to protect their master, so naturally they couldn't possibly go too far away, so they rotated duties among themselves, and all of them were staying close by. Only, no one dared to go near. On one hand was because they were afraid of being Lee Moing's eyesore, while on the other hand, as single dogs, they were afraid that they'd be blinded by the display of the shining love. But, the situation around the courtyard's surroundings could not escape their eyes. Early morning, when Fatty Wang and Administrator Chen appeared, it had already attracted the shadow guard's attention. But because they were wearing Celestial Light Sect's disciple and administrator uniform, so the shadow guards weren't sure what they were there for. So in the end they just following right behind them, not making a single noise. Whoever knew, they actually heard such a conversation which made one vomit blood. The few shadow guards exchanged glances, as they could see a playful expression on one another's face. Where did these hilariously stupid clowns come from, to smear Third Miss? Obviously they were here to create humor. Did their eyes grow on their butts? They actually said Third Miss looked ugly? And young sect master wouldn't take interest in her? Not to mention that Third Miss didn't agree, young sect master would even possibly not agree. Moa walked to the two people's back, as he coughed heavily, cough cough. The duo still hadn't discovered it, and was still discussing as they whispered to each other's ear. Why have that wretched lass not come out yet? Has she really been struck by young sect master? How could that be possible? If you're young sect master, would you hide a dead corpse in your courtyard? He would definitely throw it out. Looks like that wretched lass isn't dead yet. How will that do? I have looked forward to this for a long time. Although not dead, then she must have been thrown into the water prison. I heard that once you enter the water prison, it's no different from being sentenced to death. Even if you come out, your cultivation will take a huge hit. Cough cough, cough cough. Moa tried his best to cough, but the two of them were too excited, and totally didn't notice him. The other shadow guards behind laughed so much that they had stitches on their sides, and even casted Moa an extremely disdainful gaze. Moa's lips twitched, feeling that his reputation as second brother was going to fall, so he hurriedly slapped Fatty Wang's shoulder. Oh my god! Who dares to hit me? Fatty Wang jumped up, as he cried out in anger, didn't you see Sir Fatty here is talking to someone? You don't even watch where you're walking. Why did you walk to my side? Are you blind? Moa's eyebrows rose. You don't know who I am? So what if I hit you? You're here wandering around young sect master's courtyard so early in the morning, obviously you're up to no good. Speak, are you a spy sent by the Green Cloud sect? Do I need to know who you are? What do you think you do for a living? I'm telling you, I'm Elder Wang's. Fatty Wang was there boasting when Administrator Chen turned his head around and was scared till he broke out in sweat, as he hurriedly tried to wrest Fatty Wang's shirt from behind, asking him to shut his gap. Fatty Wang didn't understood why he did that as he turned around. Uncle, what are you trying to do? Why are you tugging my shirt? Administrator Chen made different signs with his eyes at him for quite some time, but Fatty Wang still didn't come to his senses. Moa gave a cold harumph. Continue speaking. Why have you stopped? Who are you to Elder Wang? Fatty Wang wanted to continue when Administrator Chen urgently pounced over, using his might to cover his mouth. You can also listen on. FFFF. Fatty Wang's eyes opened wide as he tried his best to speak. Administrator Chen's forehead was dripping with sweat, as he squeezed out two words from in between his teeth, shut up. He had not discovered in the past that this nephew of his could be so dumb, and now he was going to cause him to get into trouble. Administrator Chen as Celestial Light Sect's administrator held some power, and he had seen Lee Moing's shadow guards several times. Even if he didn't recognize their faces, but when he saw the symbolic dressing on them, he could still easily recognize Moa's identity. Young sect master's most trusted shadow guard. Don't think they only bore the status of protectors, but in Celestial Light Sect, as compared to the elders, they were someone who one couldn't offended. All because they could meet young sect mater daily. Moreover, he and Fatty Wang appearing here, and were caught red-handed by the shadow guards, was originally something which easily caused others to be suspicious. Unfortunately, Fatty Wang still had no inkling, and even dared to berate young sect master's shadow guards. Administrator Chen was so frightened that his soul almost left his body, as he hurriedly bowed down 90 degrees to Mo to apologize. This Sir Shadow Guard, really, we're really sorry, we only took the wrong path, and we don't mean to be disrespectful to young sect master. We will leave immediately, right now. Saying that, he used his might to tug Fatty Wang, as he tried to pass by Mo. However, Mo took a step to the side, coincidentally blocking their way. Wait, took a wrong path? Such a funny joke. Can you say it once again? I can tell that you're wearing the administrator's uniform, so no matter how, you're also one of the older people in Celestial Light Sect. Would you not know that the west region of the rear mountain is young sect master's turf? Trying to use the reason of taking the wrong path to deceive me? Do you think I'm an idiot? Administrator Chen's cold sweat started to drip, as his heart was extremely flustered. Earlier when Li Moying was not in the sect, this courtyard's surroundings were guarded by ordinary guards, and not shadow guards, so even if he stood far away to keep watch, nothing would happen. Like that last time when he sent Huang Yueli over, he wasn't obstructed by anyone at all. This led to Administrator Chen overlooking the existence of the shadow guards, thinking that it was still the same as previous days ago. After they were caught, did he suddenly regained his response? Momentarily, he didn't know what to say. If young sect master were to find out that he had been secretly spying on his whereabouts, then he would not be allowed to live. Everyone said young sect master's temper isn't very good recently, so no one dared to offend him. Administrator Chen was frightened out of his guts, but Fatty Wang still didn't know the seriousness of this matter. When he heard that the person in front was Li Moying's shadow guard, he immediately became excited as he pushed Administrator Chen aside, and rushed the Mo. Sir Shadow Guard, your young sect master's Sir Shadow Guard. My uncle and I are here today, to expose a female disciple with treacherous intent. Mo had heard their conversation earlier, and immediately guessed what he wanted to say. He creased his brows slightly. Oh? A female disciple with treacherous intent? Fatty Wang replied, yes, that female disciple is called Yi Xiao. She was originally this year's newly advanced outer disciple, and had been allocated to young sect master's courtyard to do cleaning factotum. But the minute she heard that she could come to young sect master's courtyard, that shameless woman actually had dirty thoughts, thinking of seducing young sect master. Yesterday, she obviously knew that young sect master would return, so she intentionally dressed herself up and hid herself in the courtyard, probably hoping to climb onto young sect master's bed. I'm worried that young sect master would be entrapped by the vixen, so we intentionally came over to report this. You can also listen on. Mo was so suffocated that he almost died, as his mouth didn't dare to open, just in case he burst out in laughter. This really was the funniest joke which he had heard this entire year. If Third Miss were to seduce Master, then Master would probably be mad with joy. He would probably lie flat, allowing her to tease him. Ayo, wasn't this equivalent to falling into the vixen's scheme? Fatty Wang saw his taut expression, and he mistook it, thinking that Mo heard about the shameless person, so he was so angry that he was going mad. Mo Chi had also walked over from his back, and putting on a straight face as he said, that's right, second brother. Yesterday night, I saw a suspicious female disciple, appearing in Master's courtyard. It seemed that she really climbed onto Master's bed. What should we do? Fatty Wang's heart was filled with joy, as he didn't expect this wretched lass to invite her own death, so actually really do such a thing. This simply was heavens helping him. Fatty Wang urgently added, right, this sir, the person whom you have seen is definitely Yi Xiao. Who is the shameless little slut who I was talking about? Will both sir here please use your penetrating judgment? This disciple here is absolutely worried for young sect master, so I risked my life to come here. I hope young sect master will not fall into that wretched slut's trap. Mo and Mo Chi exchanged glances, as they gave an amiable smile. Ah, this. Younger brother Wang, the matter which you said, we know about it already, thank you for specially coming over to inform us. We'd not expect that such a farce to happen in our sect. This cannot be overlooked. You and your uncle will now follow us to meet young sect master, and explain the matter to him. Hearing that, Fatty Wang's joy was displayed on his face. This was really running into good luck, to actually have the chance to meet young sect master personally, and even render such outstanding service. In future, he will be able to hug young sect master's thigh. He hurriedly thanked Moa 1,000 times, just short of kneeling down to kowtow to him. Even Administrator Chen was fooled by Moa and all, as he saw his nephew in new light. Usually he thought he wasn't not steady while doing stuff, and now suddenly he changed according to the situation, that even those two Sir Shadow Guards were willing to guide him along. The both of them were overjoyed, as they diligently followed behind Moa and the others, and hadn't noticed that the few Shadow Guards who were behind them bore an expression which looked as though they were looking forward to watching a good show. Just at this moment, a creak sound was heard and Li Moying's courtyard's door suddenly opened. When Huang Yueli awoke in the morning, the sky had already turned bright. By her side, Li Moying laid silently, with his eyes tightly shut. Apparently he had not woken up yet. And the blanket which was originally wrapped around her had unknowingly been drawn out, and were now covering both of them. Underneath the blanket, their bodies intertwined, her entire body leaned on Li Moying's body, and she could distinctly feel Li Moying's well-built muscle lines, and that warm and supple skin. Huang Yueli's face blushed a shade of red, as she gently pushed him aside, with the intention to get up. But Li Moying suddenly tightened his rein, pulling her back. Huang Yueli fell onto him once again, and went into a blank before responding. You're awake? Millimeter. The man beside her talked in an unclear voice, as he slowly opened his eyes. That pair of bewitching peach blossom eyes had a blurry look, and after a couple of breaths, it slowly became clear. Huang Yueli stared at that pair of eyes which was exactly the same as his past life, as her lips curled up slightly, not knowing if it was her hallucination. After last night, Li Moying's expression and actions seemed even more alike to his past life. You can also listen on. For a moment there, Li Moying had no idea where he was. After a while, he began to recall what happened yesterday, as he agitatedly turned over, pressing Huang Yueli below him. Huang Yueli hastily covered his mouth, not allowed to kiss. You haven't rinsed your mouth. Li Moying went into a daze, before he suddenly laughed. This isn't a dream, really not in my dreams. The things you told me yesterday. Is it really true? He was a cold and aloof man who seldom smiled. But when he did, that good-looking face seemed to have added a kind of charm, one that could kill instantly. Huang Yueli was crying foul while she pouted her lips in protest. What did I tell you yesterday? What is really true? Regarding your past life's identity, of course it's true. But as for other matters, Li Moying's brows raised, as he leaned in close to her, that handsome bewitching face right in front of her, made Huang Yueli twist her body restlessly. Whereas Li Moying intentionally kept his smile, as his voice sunk gloomily, the others are all false. What? What others? Huang Yueli's brain had already turned into a lump of stick glue. Li Moying saw that his influence over her was so huge, as he was extremely complacent, purposely continuing to seduce her. His scorching breath blew past her earlobes. The others, like. The words you said when you like me. Huang Yueli blinked. Did I say that? I've already forgotten. Li Moying thought that this young lass had already been dazed until she lost her soul, but at the crucial timing, she actually reacted in time and reserved the situation. This simply made one felt defeated. He couldn't help but sigh, as he placed his forehead against hers. Little lass, you're really an annoying one of a kind. The two of them leaned so closely together, as the combination of their breaths felt so ambiguous. This time, Huang Yueli forgot that Li Moying had not rinsed his mouth, as she became intoxicated in his kisses. It was right after the kissing had completed when she covered her face, jumping up in shock. You really haven't rinsed your mouth. Quickly scram and rinse your mouth, I want to get up. She kicked Li Moying, and she herself jumped down the bed first, looking for water to wash up. Li Moying lazily laid on the bed, looking as her bubbly actions jumping around here and there, as though her little foxtail had been stepped on, as his lips were filled with smiles. To actually criticize me for not rinsing my mouth. Who would rinse their mouths early in the morning when they were being intimate? Forget it, I'm too lazy to talk about this, sooner or later you'd get accustomed to it. After a fluster, the two of them finally completed their washing up. After having breakfast, Li Moying stood at the bedroom door, watching Huang Yueli arrange his collar. As he was much taller than Huang Yueli, she had to tip up her toes. Li Moying smiled slightly, as he leaned downwards. After successfully helping him to tidy up, Huang Yueli satisfactorily patted his shoulder. All right, we can go out now. Li Moying said, my master was looking for me to discuss some matters, and there was still no conclusion yet. I have to head over today. Where are you going? If you're going to tour around the sect, or going to the small town at the foot of the mountain to buy things, I'll let Mo Yi know Mo to accompany you. Speaking of this, Huang Yueli seemed to have thought of something as she asked, right, I've heard some people talking about this, why have you locked brother Mo Yi up? And what's more, in the water prison? He's very loyal to you, so what offense had he committed? Why did you suddenly drive him away? You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.